All right. We're good? We're good. Hello. Hi. Hi. Hello. We're good. We're good and we're live. We're making it happen. There's the transition. Look at that. Okay. Sweet. We're in the clear. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the Pearly Gates. Welcome, welcome.
What up?
Hello. Welcome to the Pearly Gates live stream. We have a massive list of questions from the Discord. We'll be taking questions from the live chat today. Joel will be joining us. He will be moderating the chat and also plucking out some good questions as they come in. We're going to be doing... The plan is to do about 2 hours of Pearly Gates Q&A, and then in the last hour or so, we're going to open it up if you guys have questions about Riftkin, upcoming stuff for Game 2, anything that we can talk about for the future. So feel free to ask those questions. We're not going to be ignoring you. Trust me, we're just going to be writing them down, covering them all at the end. That way we have two nice little segments of this stream. But
we've got
beyond that,
we've got a lot of questions from our Discord.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll be going over some of those, and then we'll be, like Drew said, answering some of them live.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to be bouncing back and forth, so you might hear answers to questions that you didn't see in the chat.
Yes.
And for the part 2, you may be a little lost if you did not watch the direct yesterday.
Yes.
So definitely check that out when you're done here, if you have not. And also, we've got merch up right now for the next 2 weeks. If you go to boardingparty.myshopify.com, you can get the Cult of Nipsey hoodie or a super cool boarding party beanie with the new logo on it.
I have one right here. There it is. Can you see? It's mirrored for me. Is it this way?
Yes.
There. Behold. They're super cool. They're super comfy, and I love them a lot.
So, without further ado,
should we just jump right into it, as they say?
Yes.
Yes. All right. I tried my best to organize your guys' questions. There are a lot of them. I have about 35 pages of questions and answers to buzz through. We're not going to do all of them here today. Some of them will warrant a further explanation later on. But to start us off in no particular order.
Hold on, sorry. I want to interject before we jump in. I just want to make sure that everything sounds good to you guys.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
You can hear us okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to get 3 questions deep and be like, I can't hear you.
Yes. Let's give them a second to catch up. That's a good call, because I was just going to jump right in and we were going to be very confused.
I didn't even think about it till just now. So
yeah, let us know. Can you guys hear everything? Is the music too loud? That's always something we want to avoid forever in the future. Are we drowned out by the background music? All that stuff. But I know there's some latency.
Says we got it. Sounds great.
Sounds great. Sounds great.
Thank you, NWR Tank Engine and Iron Knuckles 24 for letting us know. Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
gang. Beautiful Nuzlocke. Thank you.
All right.
Okay. So to get us started, I don't know. What do you think? Should we call out who asked them in the Discord?
Sure.
Why not? All right. Going up first, we have Sunrise Sanction. These questions are in no particular order. This is your one and only warning. If you have not finished the TOTS campaign, I am about to spoil the entire thing. So if you haven't caught up and you haven't watched everything, I don't think there's too much in here that has to do with Ragnarok, but this is the one and only shot. I don't know. If you click on the Pearly Gates Q&A video, I don't know what to tell you. So Sunrise Sanction asks, did Bentley's parents have an actual connection to the Ghost Realm due to the Gengar that they bred? No more than anyone else who has ever bred a Ghastly. There was an idea early on to focus the Ghost's attention on Bentley as a point of character growth, as I knew that Psychic types were going to be an antagonist. Whether or not they ended up being the main antagonist was up for debate. We'll get into that a little bit later. But that fell off pretty quick. We did do the doppelganger thing, which we'll talk about later. But once CJ got the tombstone, it felt odd to push ghosts onto Bentley further. So I kind of just backed off and moved on from there. Moving on. Bonandolph asked, off of a Bentley Ghost question, what was the black goop monster that Kaya had when they fought, and what was that realm? So that was a faceless. That was a possessed Ditto capable of mimicking humans and Pokemon perfectly, which is why it was able to be Bentley. The longer they let Kaya talk circles around CJ, the more of those there were going to be in that fight. So Kaya was intended to be a TPK if they handled it poorly and played their cards wrong. And they were really close to that. As for where it was, every answer you guys have thrown out is viable. Is it the negative realm, the ghost dimension, the upside down? It's whatever you want. It's nowhere, it's everywhere. It's a little pocket of the tombstone. It was a nightmare place where Kaya would be stronger than the tots if they let her work for longer and longer and longer and build it up. So that's that. Kerwans and Benandolf both had a similar question. How close was CJ to becoming a ghost when he originally held the tombstone? And Benandolf wants to know, what was his actual number? I think I said the actual number in the epilogue. I can't find the document that I found that number in. So go check the epilogue, check my numbers on this. So I definitely lost it. But he was alarmingly close. At the rate he was using his abilities, he probably had a couple sessions before he was just going to become a villainous NPC, and Jordan would have needed a new character. I don't remember the exact number. I know it was in the 1700s, and he had a limit of 2,000. But every time he tried to read someone's mind, looked through his eyes, manipulated a ghost, I rolled a D100, and he used his powers a lot. So yeah, he was very, very close. At the rate he was doing it, we had probably a few weeks. Okay. Dante's Furnace asks, what would D have gotten if he managed to complete his quest and seal away the escaped convicts? He got it. He got Undertow. Undertow was his reward. So, or at least getting an audience with Undertow. There was a bit of a miscommunication, even for me and Devin, where he didn't have to seal them away. He just had to deal with them. You have to kill them, convince them to change their ways, recapture them, whatever you have to do. The Tidecaller's like, I got bigger fish to fry than worrying about 6 problems that live in a lake. Deal with it. Figure it out on your own. Handle it. And he did. So he got an audience with Undertow. Because the Tidecaller was like, I know someone who can help you with your problems. I have literally bigger fish to fry. Kerwans asks, was Milo ever the Muta Hadith Kathir, or did the Prime Mind just make that up to get him to release him? He absolutely was. Everything the Prime Mind told him until the very end was the truth. Think of it like Ben Kenobi letting himself die to become a Force ghost. The Prime Mind was stronger after death, and he knew that. So he was like, if I can just get this kid to kind of take this mantle from me so that I can be free to do what I want without attracting the attention of Arceus. So there's that. Dante's Furnace asks, what could Phoebe have gotten if she leaned into being Ridgemont's ward? She would have become the promised divinity, as teased in CJ's Nightmare, where she would have been a half-angelic being. I would probably have made her like a protector ASMR analog, so she would have had like angel wings and been able to like cure diseases and stuff like that. But yeah, it would have been a little bit weird. But the plan was for her to go with Ridgemont if she wanted to. This was just a pitch. Never even talked to Tia about it. But the offer was going to be, I'll give you that power. We handle this. But then Ridgemont, a.k.a. Refasul, and Phoebe would go back to the Ragnarok dimension and help to rebuild it and restart it. But in the absence of her, that's why Arceus and the Scion gang skipped out. So they headed back to the Ragnarok dimension to rebuild it. Because you've got all these stones here. You've got the Lunark is gone into another dimension, which we'll have to deal with. Maybe never at this point. But that's been launched. So Arceus and the Scions that weren't even from here are like, okay, let's go. Let's get out of here. These people are nuts. Okay. Sam Cruel asks, can I go into more detail about the powers someone has being a guardian? Like CJ having the ghost stone. And are these new stones, I think, I'm extrapolating a bit, are the new stones less corruptive, but with enough time, will CJ still turn, or will he just become more ghostly? So it depends on the stones. The original tombstone had a lot of drawbacks to it, but generally it allowed humans access to abilities related to the associated stone and type. So CJ finding the tombstone gave him power over ghosts. You guys found the Firestone early on. If you had messed with that a little bit more, somebody might have ended up throwing fire bolts because I was a new DM and I was trying things that didn't work. Obviously, D got a lot of control over water. Milo learned how to teleport and gained portent dice. He could see the future. The newer stones, because of the way it was handled, had no drawbacks. They had all the power, but none of the corruption. They weren't as strong, but they wouldn't overtake your mind. They would still turn you into a stone at the end of your life, but they at least don't, drive you mad with power because you don't become an all over nightmare monster. But let's see. I think that's pretty much it for that one. And Sam Cruel, we've got a bunch in a row from you, so we'll just handle those real quick. Was there more planned interaction between CJ and his family if something went wrong? Yes. I had always intended to put the full Jasper's family line into the game, just one at a time. But with scheduling as it was towards the end game, it was getting really tough to get everybody together reliably. So, unfortunately, that is one of the plot lines that we just never really dove deeper into. But CJ handled it in his epilogue, and I think he did a great job. And was the Oni playing all of them from the moment it spared CJ, or did his sister actually program it to do the greater good? And does it still kind of have a will, or is it completely a machine? So the Oni was completely a machine by the time it met the players. The player piloting the Oni really wanted to play a Terminator-esque thing in another campaign. They wanted to be like a lawful evil Warforged in a party that wanted to be good heroes. And I was like, I'll do you one better. You can be a villain in this game. So I brought them over to here. Their goal was to find CJ, bring him back at any cost. They came up with the idea of the greater good when they found out that someone traveling with CJ had a psychic stone. And they go, I want that for my powers. That sounds pretty neat. So they came up with the greater good protocol to get them close to Milo, so that when the time came, they could just kill him and take the power. But Joel's an 8th dimensional chess player, and kept that from happening with Operation Moonboom. But, fun fact, the Oni is still alive and is currently drifting on the moon that was sent away. Just a fun fact for you. Okay.
It's a fun fact.
Yeah, isn't that neat?
We've got one question from the chat so far.
Yo, let's go.
Which was, how many times did Milo use the camera?
How many times did you... like 2?
Not enough.
Did you forget that you had it? Because I forgot you had it.
Kind of. So originally, it was a little bit of a metagame decision, and I wanted the camera to take the pictures that would be the art for the scenes that we did in the early days.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, hey, this cool thing's going to happen. I'm going to take a picture of it, and then that's the art that we did.
Yeah.
But we ended up moving away from that kind of in general.
Yeah.
In doing the art, and then it felt dirty because it was just like a weird meta thing, and then I just stopped using it. But yeah, I only used it like maybe twice, maybe 3 times.
I genuinely, I think I gave you like 10 pictures.
Yeah.
We didn't even come close to half.
Not
I forgot about the camera until just now. So that's a great question, Jake Sales. All right. Sunrise Sanction. You asked, did the Woods family know where their rejects were going in that truck? Yes. That was always the shameful secret of the Woods family. Anyone who has ever bred Pokemon in the games knows that you end up with thousands of rejects on your quest for perfection. So anyone who raises Pokemon to that degree is going to have a tremendous amount of less than perfect specimens. And training can only get you so far. So as grim and awful a subject as it is, the Woods Ranch embodied the idea of like Pokemon eugenics, which is this very weird undertone from the games where if you're breeding for like that perfect, you want your perfect Charmander, your 6 IVs, you're going to end up with a lot of stinkers on the way, and you have to do something with those. In the games, you just ambiguously release them, which in theory just ravages the ecosystem around you. But yeah, the Woods family had an opportunity to kind of turn a blind eye and make an immense amount of profit from those rejects. And while Bentley never knew, they definitely took that opportunity. That's why Bentley's family was so rich. Okay, let's move on down. Dante's Furnace has another one. Another question. We know what would have happened if CJ's number reached a certain point, but did Milo also have a number with his powers where the honeymoon phase of, I can help so many things would end, and the Prime Mind would have taken over early? We saw the initial steps when Milo learned to teleport and his pupils changed shape. Every time he absorbed corruption, getting himself more powerful and not turning it into an evolutionary stone, he would gain more powers and change slightly. I showed Milo what that would be with Tua's vision. I don't know if you internalized that or not, but he did manage to avoid that for the most part until, the 11th hour. But that is all of the plotline questions specifically. And I know a couple of them have rolled through in the YouTube chat.
Yes.
Jake Lilly, your question will be covered in a little bit, so we'll circle back of Milo's second character.
Joel's second character.
Yeah.
Milo didn't have any characters.
That's fair. Yeah, Milo did not have a backup character, but Joel did. What was the goal of Pollen in the Ghost City that only CJ could see since we never went back? I gotta unpack that one. Because you guys ran into Pollen. You talking about Fola in general? Or the Ghost City that CJ would go through with Dez? There's a lot.
I think it's in reference to that one town that had the museum and he could see a bunch of ghosts. Yeah.
Yeah, Fola. That was outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, Jake, don't worry about it.
No,
don't
you're
not.
good.
It's.
I
just want you to know like it was coming.
I'm
you're talking about Milo.
Yeah, I'm memeing.
It's fine. We do it all the time. And then while I guess the point of that was just CJ was using his ghost powers a ton. So I was kind of trying to hint to him like, hey, if you keep this up, this is going to be a one-way trip. Kerwans is also asking, was Tua evil and with the Prime Mind? No, Tua was true neutral. Tua was just saying, hey, if you travel along the path that I'm about to set you on, this is where you might end up. So yeah, Tua was true neutral. At the beginning, the Prime Mind was as well. Everybody starts with good intentions, but, it's about where you land.
Money and power.
Yes. Okay, so we have a section in here called What Ifs. And most of these, I will be honest, don't have great answers because I don't know. But some of them do. This one's going to be a bit wordy. Maybe I'll try to find a way to post this somewhere. I don't know. We'll figure out with this doc how to handle it. But Elder Squirtle asks, what would have happened to Bentley if he had gone all in with Helios? So I'm just going to tell you what Bentley could already do as soon as he signed the pact. I will just run through real quick the doc that I sent him, and then you can just scale up from there. So for context of this, I asked Ben how dark Bentley would get to save the world on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is like full-on Darth Vader, kill the younglings yourself, do whatever you have to. 1 is like, I wouldn't harm a fly. I would sooner perish than, try to turn to the dark side. Ben's answer was 9.5. So there's a reason that Helios plot went from 0 to 100 really fast. Is I had player buy-in initially, and then we lost it. But all of that to say, the Heartstone +2. The wielder has 2 legendary resistances per day. There's a caveat to this. If you disclose these abilities or their source to anyone, you lose everything, which is why as soon as Bentley starts talking to his friends, he gets put in a book. And yeah, there's a reason that Helios came out full tilt ready to go, is he thought he had the perfect acolyte, and then this kid just really didn't follow through. So for anybody wondering how come that scene may have seemed a bit harsh from an outside perspective, but that was what was going on behind the scenes. But the abilities that Bentley had, so that I can keep on track. If your Pokemon would deal fire damage, they deal double that amount of damage. When you or a Pokemon you control reduces a Moontouch Pokemon or an LGM to 0 hit points, your Charisma or Dexterity score increase by +1 to a maximum of 22. So he would have been getting his stats back every time he killed something. He had the Book of Shadows, which makes him immune to poison and disease, And you can scribe your desires into the Book of Shadows over a long rest, gaining one of the following boons. These ones I'm going to kind of cover pretty quick. They're just a lot of mechanics. Infernal Scarring, which is the one I forced on him when he started to reveal stuff. Until your next rest, the first time you were an ally within 10 feet would be killed. They instead drop to 1 hit point. You take the excess damage. If you survive it, you grant an ally that amount of bonus damage as fire on their next attack. While under the effects of this, you're vulnerable to slashing damage because you're just really nasty. Death's Whispers. Until your next rest, you make all intimidation and deception checks with advantage, but you have disadvantage on perception checks as ghostly whispers fill your ears. We had Eyes of the Pyre. Until your next rest, you have dark vision out to 60 feet and can see into the ethereal plane, so the ghost world for our mechanical purposes. During that time, your eyes resemble coals and emit an infernal red light out to 20 feet, so it is very, very obvious where you're looking, which means you cannot be stealthy because your eyes are like high beams that shoot bright red light out. He had a Cloak of Shadows, where until your next rest, if you're in dim light or darkness, you use your action to become invisible, same as the Warlock ability. But during that time, you have disadvantage on everything you do in direct sunlight. So he's got sunlight sensitivity. And the sword. The sword was cool, man. It's called Lightbringer. The flaming sword places the power of the sun in the palm of your hands. As an action, you can cast Daylight, Flame Blade, or Burning Hands. You may do each of these abilities once per day. At will, you can control fire. When activated, you become immune to fire damage and any effect of heat or flames. If a creature dies within 30 feet of you, you may use a reaction to sacrifice 1d10 hit points from your maximum and raise them as a solar-type creature under your control and increase their maximum hit points by the rolled amount. If they are killed again, your hit points are restored and the creature is permanently turned to ash and cannot be resurrected. If you die, any solar types you are enhancing are immediately turned to ash. So increase those effects over the course of any number of sessions, and you have what Bentley would have been able to do. Every day at dawn, he could have poured more stats into the Heartstone, making it better and better and better. It currently had +2 because that was the amount of different stats he had poured in there. He had a +2 to every saving throw and a number of legendary resistances for each. So he could have gotten up to 6. That was the only other thing I had planned. But yeah, so that was the Evil Bentley line. And then we have another question from the same person. I'm curious what the biggest plot regret is for Drew and the rest of the tots. Not having an encounter with CJ's parents directly, not exploring more of Alluvia, not experiencing an Elite Four/Pokemon tournament. I know mine. I've talked about mine a million times. Biggest regret early on was I was not confident enough as a new DM to let someone catch an undead Kanto starter. Would have been really, really cool to do that. Would have been a really fun design space, but I was so new, and I didn't want to set a precedent that you could just catch any like boss encounter, and then I let them do it with Riot anyway. But yeah, that early on, that's the biggest issue. That was my biggest sorrow. Otherwise, Mox Eterna dying, aka Max Distema. He was super important for a ton of plot hooks and like setting up the intended ending, but the dice just decided he should be killed. So that's mine. I don't know. Do you have a big plot regret? Other than maybe the obvious of like having to pull the trigger.
Yeah. I mean, I think that question comes later, but I think in the beginning, I regret not catching the Natu for more than just like the reason, but I let a lot of other players influence it, even though I like wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I would have been down a completely different path.
Yeah.
And it might have been better for the character in the long run. I don't know. But between that and no, I'd say that's it.
Yeah. To tackle on that, this is in a different section, but Sunrise Sanction asks, was the Natu early on really evil? No. It wasn't. It was just a Natu.
Yeah.
It was just curious about them.
A Natu joined in the end, but
yeah.
There's a couple questions from YouTube.
Yeah, let's hit them.
I want to jump back to.
Yeah.
Someone asked what happened to Milo's soul.
It was destroyed, just completely eliminated, which is why there was no way to easily recover you.
And then my favorite question.
Yes.
Had CJ become a tree, would he have been a fresh sprout or just a full-grown tree?
In a similar fate to Milo, he would have just become a Trevenant, and everything that made CJ would have ceased to exist. But in Ridgemont's eyes, that's more merciful than guiding everybody that you've ever known and will ever exist to an afterlife that you can never have. Because eventually that's just going to wear you down and you're going to become bitter and resentful of everything around you.
And then before we pivot too hard, Iron Knuckles wanted to ask what was the intended ending you mentioned with
The intended ending was the reignition of the War of the Architects, and you guys would have fought the Prime Mind in a full-on like military war with like legions of Mox's soldiers, and like you could have brought Javier back in, and instead of a lunar invasion, it would have been like a psychic invasion. Not to the same degree, but like we would have had a big fight with the Prime Mind, and it would have been crazy.
And do we know what happened to Kaz?
Yeah, I'm fairly certain you guys absolutely beat him senseless, and then the Prime Mind found out that he was messing around, and as they say, you frick around, you find out.
Nice.
So he was also deleted. Kerwans, our final what if question. Was there any Pokemon that I wish that you guys would have caught because I like the mechanics or like the story? No, I don't regret anything that you guys chose not to engage with, because it is just as much your guys' story as it is mine, if not more so. So leaving anything on the table is just part of the mixture of running D&D for your friends. There's going to be stuff that you're excited about that they don't care about. There's going to be stuff that they're super excited about that you're like, oh, really? So that's just par for the course. Obviously, I put a few encounters in for specific players, but I never cared if you chose not to engage or didn't catch it. Like, Wimpimble was meant to kind of entertain Phoebe and Milo for a bit and be like a traveling magician that showed up a couple times. And then he joined CJ's team. So, like, those are just... Stuff just kind of happens sometimes.
Yeah, I think he would have been an amazing addition to Wimpimble, or not Wimpimble, Wyman Coover's team.
Yeah, that probably would have happened, honestly.
That would have been hilarious.
Yeah. So yeah, those questions are hard because when you guys are like, do you regret the player's choices? No, because then we wouldn't have the story that we had.
Yeah.
So those ones are super easy to answer, but they may not be super satisfying to have answered. So rolling on down to these questions are what or who was X. So what was this thing? So that's where what was the Natu early on? Was he evil? No. Questions like that. So Soleil asks, what was the thing that left a handprint on Desmond in the ghost dimension? The parts of CJ's soul he had fed into the tombstone, telling him, do not come back here. Stop coming in here. I'm already trapped. You don't have to be too. In his own way. What would have happened to Jax if he was alive when Helios was disintegrated? This one confused me because Jax was alive when Helios was disintegrated. Jax chose to make his final stand in an effort to reclaim the feeling of being a guardian. He was a sad, broken man who was a proud defender of the world. And he felt shame at the lengths it took him to claw back a modicum of self-respect, making a pact with a literal demon to just feel something. So he decided to go out fighting for what he believed in and fighting for those kids that tried to pull him out of his slump. So that one, the timing on that one kind of confused me because Jax was alive. So you kind of got to see that. But hopefully that helps. Bonandolph asks, what was Spencer? And who is his grandfather? Were they connected to any major plot threads or just a little Easter egg of ghosts? Spencer was a shape-changing plot device ghost that I used to start adding in story elements. And I'm not ashamed to admit it. The gang stuck around in Xantha for a very long time, so I wanted to make Xantha more interesting. Being from Arizona, that's where we live. There's a ton of ghost towns around, so I just kind of took that idea and ran. His grandfather, Gerhardt, was an early example of a lore dump character. I had teased a ton of ideas with no context, so I wanted to put somebody in front of the players that would kind of talk to them and tell them a little bit what was going on. They were actually connected to the Mox and Kaz storylines, but only at first. Gerhardt exploding in the blast was meant to kind of incite you guys to get involved with that conflict. But Wadsworth covered that up. And I was so happy because I was like, this is way crazier than what I had planned. So let's roll with this. And then you guys left Mayburn because Wadsworth covered that up, and then Milo vomited because he had lied. So I let my plot, my idea, just die on the vine. I was like, this is nowhere near as cool as whatever you're stuck in now, because I'm like, when that comes out, there's a reason in the session where you say it. It's the session where D shows up. I'm hiding under the table because I'm like, I've been waiting for this for like 2 years, and it happens on the day that D joins us at the table. Oh no. Player drama is way more engaging and way more fun for everybody involved than anything I could ever throw at you. So I was more than happy to let that all go. But yeah, they were connected to the Mox and Kaz storylines. But those died literally right then. As soon as that happened, I went, anything I had planned doesn't matter anymore. Let's move on.
And I hope that answers your question, Morton, on why that ending was changed.
Yeah, there we go. Creamy McCreamy, I can see your question. Is Lord Ridgemont Refusil? Yes. And then Jake Lilly, who was my favorite NPC to voice. Not Remus. Let me rephrase that. I really liked voicing Remus, but Remus ravaged my voice for like a week every time we talked to him. So that's why Dez changed his voice immediately.
Yeah.
I don't know. They all had their quirks. By the end, Rosalie was growing on me.
I have 2 guesses.
Yeah.
Ditto.
That was the most fun I had just messing with you guys.
Or when you had to mimic Bentley with Bentley in the room.
Yes, that was also fun. Yeah, honestly, I loved all of them for different reasons. Remy was fun. I don't know, anyone with a fun voice, because I don't have an accent, so putting an accent on is always very fun.
You have an American accent.
No, I don't got none. I don't got no accent. Yeah, so I mean, there's that. Kerwans asks the first of many questions that I think you guys are just gonna hate the answer to. What was the Elite Four in the campaign, and how hard would it be? There wasn't one. There was no Elite Four. I think I covered this in a lab video.
Oh, yeah.
There was not an Elite Four.
It was like a big tournament.
There was a league challenge that was 8 consecutive things you had to get through, and each one would challenge you in a way related to the gym that it was tied to. So every gym was meant to challenge you in a specific way. And when you got to that league challenge, you got one shot at it. If you failed, you were done. Because if you're going to be the champion and you're going to hold off legions of threats, you can't ever have failed. So all I had to go off of at the beginning was, for Bentley at least, was I want to be the very best that no one ever was. So that to me screams, I want to be the champion. So it needed to be hard. I needed it to feel like he had accomplished something if he got there and did it. So there was no Elite Four, but the gang never really set out to challenge the league gauntlet. And I think part of that was I told them how difficult and intense it was going to be. And I think that kind of turned off everybody's interest in it. But it would have been a grueling set of challenges, each one being a reflection of the gym that got you there. No held items, no resting, no healing, no recovery moves of any kind. And it would have culminated in fighting Blue in a 6v6.
Oh my God.
You get one shot. If you lost, you could never be the champion. I told them that, and the players were like, I don't think we're ready for that. I don't think we can handle it.
I still don't think.
I truly don't think anyone would have come close.
Yeah.
There's just no way. And I don't say that to be like dismissive of your guys' efforts. But by the end, I don't think you guys had 6 that could live a hit from Urshifu.
It could be my entire epilogue team. All of them. More than 6. And I still don't think I could have done that.
Yeah, I think Urshifu could have killed anyone on your teams in one shot.
Yeah, probably.
Because he makes 3 attacks in a round. They are guaranteed crits.
Yeah, you're done.
Each crit is 3d12 doubled. So it would have been bad. If you're weak to him, you're just going to die. So nothing doing
Crazy.
there. So yeah, that's that one. Kerwans also asks, what was some of the stuff Ridgemont could have given the tots? There was only one thing he didn't give them other than the thing he was supposed to offer them. And that was called the Elixir of the Dusk Rose. It was 3. This was meant to happen before Ambrosia, but Troy went off the books, so I just let him happen because he's running the character. So at that point, I don't really care. It was 3 doses of an incredibly potent poison that would immediately pacify any creature. So it was a really busted magic item. No save. You set them from hostile to neutral. So Stonebreaker shows up, you throw one of these things in its face, and it doesn't want to fight you anymore.
Wow.
But if you attack it, it's back on. But that was supposed to happen before Ambrosia, because rather than, hey, come back to life, it was, hey, we're in over our heads, let's get out of here. Because I knew what I wanted to throw at you in the future. And that was like the horse monster that we'll talk about later. So that was going to be for that. But Andolph asks, what would have happened if they had freed Amenadiel? If you haven't watched Ragnarok, I don't know what to tell you. But they never had the chance. Amenadiel, for all his power, was still mortal. So it's more of a title that is passed down. So there is always an Amenadiel. There is not always Amenadiel, but there is always one. So as Ridgemont and Refasul lived through the eras, there were multiple Amenadiels. If you're asking what the Whispering Fleshball in the manor was, that was what was left of Kirik Rai from Ragnarok. Refasul wanted to keep him close to make sure he never got out again. So that was the whole line about, like, rest in peace, my cousin, like, never come back. That was that. But Amenadiel was never put in front of the tots. So they never really had the opportunity. Okay. Kerwans asks, what were the R balls in the manor? If they are rocket balls, what did he work with rocket on? So this was a huge red herring that I threw the players. R stands for reclaimed. It was meant to muddy the waters for the Ridgemont arc. Because I wanted you guys to think that it was a Team Rocket thing. And you guys came up with that. I didn't even make the connection. I was like, yeah, R for reclaimed, and I'll explain it to them if they ask. And you never did. You guys are just like, it's a Team Rocket trap, dude. Oh my God, he's been stealing millions of Pokemon. No. Reclaimed is a label given to stored items from trainers who had been lost with their team members on their person. So if somebody disappeared in the mountains or deep in the oceans, their team's souls would be reclaimed in Ridgemont Manor until such a time as they were ready to move on, or someone mounts a rescue mission, goes and gets the submarine, pulls them up, finds the Pokeball, and releases them and talks to them again.
Jeez.
So R stands for reclaimed. We'll get into Ridgemont Manor a lot later. You guys had a lot of questions about the manor.
Good. There should be.
Yes. So they would be reclaimed. They would be placed in the many rooms of Ridgemont Manor until, again, either their physical remains were found, their bodies were reclaimed, or until they grew tired of paradise and then they could move on. Ridgemont never worked directly with Team Rocket. So there's that. Why was the flesh ball in the truck going to Bentley's parents? Another red herring. I love throwing horrible implications in front of the players with no easy answers. It was another chance for them to interact with the flesh ball over what was intended to be a pretty chill hiatus, but instead we ended with Arlecchino shooting Bentley in the chest. So, yeah, that one, that hiatus was meant to be very chill. We were going to do that session 100 downtime thing during the hiatus. That was all just going to be off-camera training, leveling up, everybody's kind of chill, and then rejoin the tots like 6 months later. We were going to do a time skip. And then they found the flesh ball, which I was going to have them find when they got to Ambercrag. But here we are. But I think I made it a little too easy to find it, so who knows? We know Kaya was just playing with CJ to take his tombstone, but how much of what she said was a lie? Did the Alakazams actually try to help, or just try and use the others as bait and possibly die to give CJ more reason to lean into Kaya? So this is another one I'm struggling to unpack, but Kerwans is in the chat, so maybe you can clarify. If this is in regards to the Kadabras in cloaks with the visions and the Talonflame flying around?
The Jin and Rai is what I'm thinking he's referring to.
Okay, yeah, so it might be that. Yeah, if it's Jin and Rai, I think I told CJ flat out. They never at any point did anything he asked. He would send them out and like leave them unattended, and they still just followed Kaya's orders. So that was that. Because the part of it that throws me off is like use the others as bait.
I see what they're saying. Because if these two Kadabras put us in situations where like Bentley dies, let's say, then CJ's much easier to persuade, like, hey, come with me and let's do stuff now. Or before he's like, no, I'm with my friends.
Yeah. Okay. Then yeah, that's kind of that. Because the question I answered was not the question that you asked, and I don't think it's very helpful. It would just be more confusing. So yeah, no, Jin and Rai at no point were helpful to CJ in any way. And I think he picked up on that after 6 or 7 missions where they would come back and go, nope, nothing to report. We're good. Everything's fine. Lucas Hill asks, was the moon invasion / Lunarch always the plan eventually, or did you come up with that down the line and replace a previous endgame that you had? It was not the endgame plan all along. I envisioned the gang taking on the gyms and someone will become champion and that be it. And then like 3 sessions in, the game got really complex. So I always like to leave moments early on in the game to either call back to or forget about. So I like to just weird the players out, and then sometimes things tie back in. Key example is the Xantha Clefairy room was leaving something open for the moon to be a problem. So I didn't have any idea what I was going to do, but I go, well, the moon's there, and the moon in every culture is tied to some kind of weird magic thing, so we'll just leave that there. But during the hiatus, I got super into analog horror for like 2 weeks. And I think I plugged it in one of the post shows. There's a thing called Gemini Home Entertainment, and I think it's Local 50 something, Local 58, Local 58. I don't know. One of those. They had a whole thing about like avoid the moon. The moon is watching you. If the moon can see you, it's too late. Stay away from the windows. And I was like, what a fascinating idea. And then they had like a VHS recording of the moon breathing. And I go, that's horrifying. And I was at, as often happens, I was at dinner with Troy, who was my sounding board for ideas. And I go, hey, I think I want to do an alien thing. And he goes, yeah, that'd be pretty cool. You should just send like thousands of aliens at them. Because his biggest goal was that a tot would be slain in combat. So, yeah. So there's that.
We got a couple more YouTube ones.
Let's hit some YouTube ones.
Joseph Maxwell asks, what is Urshifu's favorite color?
Blue.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, I know why they're asking.
That was I'm gonna meet you halfway on that one.
I was gonna say purple.
Purple.
And then Creamy McCreamy asked, what were some of the plans on if CJ used his staff on shape-shifting into animals?
So that's another thing where all the pieces were there. He could have done it at any time. As soon as he got the staff, I sent him the stat blocks. He could be a Leopard, an Arcanine, maybe a Persian, and a fourth thing that at the moment escapes my mind. He could have done it at any time, but he chose not to, which is probably for the best, because that was another case where Aldemir was kind of doing the slow play bait to get back at CJ for trying to tackle you at the tail's end. Where Aldemir was going to convince CJ... Oh, the other one was a Lycanroc, obviously. Was to convince CJ to shapeshift into a beast and not tell him how to come back. So that was the plan for that initially. And if he had come back, then he would have been stronger for the experience, and then Aldemir would have just played it off like, yeah, I was just testing you. So it was win-win for me. So hopefully that answers your question.
How's Pollen doing?
Pollen's doing great, man. He's flourishing. He's living his best life. He got to avoid the lunar invasion. I like to imagine he's just kind of chilling there, watching everybody kind of pass on through.
Any other ideas on in-world Guardian Pokemon combos that may
Guardian
have...
Pokemon combos?
Yeah, so the... any other ideas for pairs for Source Stones, since a lot of them were lost after the war? Like, we've lost... I believe the intention of the question is, like, for Alligator's gone, right? We have a new Water Guardian.
Yeah.
Like, we may have blown up a few Scions and whatnot. Like,
yeah.
Or did you have any ideas for who would backfill if we didn't?
No, I kind of just wanted to leave it ambiguous. There's a lot of questions kind of like that I think are best answered by you guys, and we have a bunch of them today, where it's no answer that I could come up with would be satisfying compared to the possibilities for the future. So no, I had no intention when you guys landed with 30 source stones. I had no intention of literally figuring out where those were going to go. That's a 10, 15, 30 year problem for the region. So if you guys didn't want to get involved with it, I wasn't going to force it on you. So there's that.
And then to go back for a second, Omega asked if we had done something about the Clefairies in Xantha, would that have affected our lunar outcome in any way? Whether stopped it, sped it up, or whatever.
So let me answer that one just very directly. Not in the way that you might think. If you guys had messed with that, I think I said like it would have just summoned a Behemoth into that room, and you guys would have just been like, what? That was the plan for that encounter, was just, hey, there's Clefairies here, and if you just watch them, they summon a Behemoth, and they talk for a bit, and then it leaves. So it was just going to be weird, but that was never anything until the hiatus. So the whole lunar invasion came about during the hiatus. So anything before that is simply me coming up with an idea and then looking backwards for things to jump ahead to. So for any of you DMs out there, this game was not like a huge web of intrigue that I plotted out from day zero. We just let it roll as it went on. And that's perfectly acceptable for you DMs out there. Don't let your players tell you that that's not viable.
I want to touch on Nuzlocke asked about the Litwick and Wadalonga. I know we're getting to that later.
We are getting to that later.
Someone else asked about the Burial Danceroo, which I know is coming up later.
Yes.
So I just want to let you know I'm not ignoring your questions. So we will just...
The Litwick I can handle pretty quick. Oh, wait, no. That one's actually like a question about that. Okay, never mind. If you were asking what they were going to get, it's not as exciting as it sounds.
And someone wanted confirmation the thing in the moon was a Lunala.
Yep. That was... Yeah, I know a lot of people thought it was like Yveltal and stuff. And that'd be cool, but no, it's just the moon bat.
Okay.
It seemed like a good fit.
Two more.
Sure.
This one's a good one.
Yes.
What/who was Samantha, the little girl?
Samantha was a Mew.
Wow.
Fun fact. And Diane did not know. That was the bigger thing. She had no idea. Samantha was not a real human child. Samantha was a Mew.
Great question.
Somebody asked, were there any... We'll get to it later, but because it's coming up now. Were there any NPCs that were player characters that we didn't meet? Yeah, Samantha. But it never really came about. The player that was supposed to run them was just never available to come back, so I just teased it and we moved on. It's fine. Not all of those are like super high concept, interesting things like the Oni and stuff. Some of them just genuinely died on the vine. And you're like, hey, you just gotta let them go. Crazy. So there's that. Yeah, the Burial Danceroo we'll get to.
And then
later.
The other one was...
That's another thing that you guys came up with, and I was like, let's just get weird.
What was that kingdom north of Greengate? And was it destroyed by that forest, or is it a separate thing entirely?
It is a separate entity entirely. The kingdom to the north is the kingdom where I ran my first D&D game. This is just the southern region of it that I had mentioned in that game, and I ported it down here. So each game kind of informed the other a little bit, but it never came up here because you guys played kids, and no one cares about the geopolitical landscape when you're 12. So it didn't matter. It would have just bogged down the story that you guys were dealing with if at any opportunity I was like, the Northern Kingdom has made a proclamation. It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect your guys' day-to-day lives. Nothing matters in that regard. So yeah, it was just another setting. Was it destroyed by the forest? No. The Northern Kingdom is largely still intact, pretty much untouched. It was landlocked, so the flooding never really got there. It wasn't like directly north. If you've watched the War of the Architects world building stream, you'll kind of know there's a terrible like MS Paint map that shows it. It's like 30 to 80 miles north of Laris region. I always left it kind of vague because we didn't go there. And the plan was never to go there. If you guys had tried to go there, I'd have been like, hang on, time out. What are you doing? No. Okay. I think that's...
Keep running. I'm collecting some more. So
He's collecting more. Okay.
Do some more.
Joel's on it. So Banandolph asks, was Pendleton always going to be a hulking bear? I know he could get kill code, but was there any point in the campaign where Pendleton could have raged out? Depending on when it may have happened, Pendleton definitely would have just looked different. So all of my descriptions, they're always tied to whatever media I'm into at the time. But Pendleton always had 2 forms. It's probably around here somewhere, but there was back in the days of the whiteboard note cards, there was one for Pendleton, and it was double-sided. So they knew he could kind of flip that switch and become dark fighting. They knew that was on the table. But no one ever wanted to push him into that. So, there's that. But you guys never pushed him into combat, and that's why he stuck with you. If you guys have been like, dude, you should fight, like, that's crazy, you can just go in, like, full kill mode, he'd have been like, I don't want to be here anymore. And he would have just left. Sunrise Sanction asks, what kind of Urshifu was the Slayer of Men? Kind of both. As with a lot of things from the source material, I focus a lot more on the aesthetics than the actual game mechanics for any given creatures. So Urshifu fit the bill for a martial arts expert, a kind of like ridiculously busted fighting type. It would have been 2 on the nose for me to use Machamp, the 4-armed Pokemon, because Unite was still going on.
See, this is why I was joking earlier, because when they asked what was Urshifu's favorite color, blue meaning Rapid Strike, because that one is blue.
Oh.
That's what I thought. So
his 2 attacks that I gave him for the finale were the signature moves of each style.
Yeah.
So I didn't really care. So apologies if you're like super into the lore of the games. It really doesn't hold up if you compare the 2. Because a lot of the times you guys were finding like Pokedex tie-ins that fit perfectly with the Laris region. Completely unintentional. Had no idea. But there was that. Dante's Furnace asks, what did the other syringe do that they got from the rockets? We know the privateer one makes you invisible. The other one they didn't test. So the other syringe was given to Neek for the final battle. It deals 8d10 necrotic damage.
And he did good.
And he did really, really, really well with it. They were meant to use during ship raids when the privateers came across something that they couldn't steal. So if they were like, that thing's way too strong or the ball failed, just kill it. So, yeah. But Andolph asks, is Desmond really the privateer they killed? And how far would you have gone with the Burial Danceroo? So this is a 2-part question. I'm going to answer it in 2 parts. Desmond may or may not have been the privateer they killed. The Burial Danceroo was a case of the players messing around with stuff and seeing what happens in the world. But that being said, the Gleeks absolutely yeeted that guy into the next life. But they may or may not have trapped his spirit in this world forever, and that spirit may or may not have formed into a Ghastly, which may or may not have found its way to the gang, which may or may not have led to the tombstone having any functionality at all.
It's hilarious.
So hopefully that answers some of your question.
It may or may not have.
Yes. What was up with Milo's new tree fear? Why a Truman Show vibe world? 1, because the Truman Show is a great movie that Joel and I both really like. But Milo's fear, and correct me if I'm wrong, was that your parents would never accept Monty no matter what, and that the Prime Mind would capture and destroy you.
Yes.
With a ball. So the best way to unsettle Joel as a player was to do that to him and then replace all those insecurities with doubt.
Yeah.
And just really seed into your mind like, God, what's real? What is this? Ugh. So yeah, that's why Truman Show. Okay, the next
couple more chat questions.
Yeah, because the next one on here is like 8 paragraphs of answers. So let's do some chat questions real quick.
Was Alnamir evil?
No, Alnamir was again true neutral. Depending on how you look at it, he might have been neutral evil, depending on your feelings about cannibalism and hunting people in the woods. But werewolf's gonna werewolf.
What were the other fossils that could have been recovered?
This is asked later, and I really wish I could find my notes. There were only ever going to be 2, no matter what he picked. I had 2 that I had come up with mechanics for. I lost the notes for one of them. Obviously, one was the Salazzle that would then devolve into a Salandit so that they could level it up and evolve it again. Because that was my solution for like, hey, I want to give them a really deadly encounter and then scale it back to where they're at. So the Salazzle was never going to be weaker than everything you had. but the Salandit was going to be so far ahead of any one thing that you had, as evidenced by its acid just dissolving the room you were in. The other one was, I believe, a Grotle or a Grottle.
That sounds right.
It was like an ankylosaur.
There was a turtle. I couldn't remember which one.
It was an ankylosaur turtle thing, and it was meant to be a Grottle that would have then turned into a Turtwig. And that one was meant for Phoebe. But again, anybody could have caught that. But that was the other fossil that I remember. I have lost my notes for those sessions, so I apologize. I don't remember the other one.
How long did it take IRL to name Destiny's Child?
What, 2 years?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
You guys you had a kid. We had a hiatus. We took like 3 months off, multiple job changes, and then finally I was like, "What is this thing's name?" Because I've been calling it Destiny's Child forever. She goes, "Fine, it's Destiny's Child," and I was like, "You could have just."
You could argue that Destiny's Child was never named, and it's the timer's still going.
You could argue that, and you know what? I think I'm gonna argue that. There's that.
And then someone asked about the horse creature thing, which I know we're getting to.
Yes,
in a
we'll
bit.
cover that later.
And we've got a bunch of Arlecchino questions. I believe there's an Arlecchino section.
There's an Arlecchino section. I will get to that. We'll cover Arlecchino's plan, how he got out of the box, all that stuff. That's fine. And there's another thing with stat blocks for a lot of stuff. Those will be a separate, like, curated video, because I don't have a good way to just vomit a bunch of stats at you and have it be any kind of anything. So hold tight for those. But rest assured, we will cover how Arlecchino did everything that he did. We'll cover why he exists, what he is, all that stuff. No worries. Okay. So there's that one. Okay. I'm going to jump to 132658. He asks, can you explain a bit more about how milestones worked? I remember in a lab video you talked a little bit about them, but couldn't specify since they were still relevant. Absolutely. So for those of you who have run a milestone XP game, everything I'm about to say is either remedial or at least kind of like tangentially related to what you already know. But for those of you who do XP stuff, here's how I handle milestones. I track how long a team member's been on the team and how often they see interaction, not just combat. Because I don't count that as heavily as some people may have expected. If the interactions are meaningful and impactful, I consider the teammate to be developing. So there's a region that Arjan was a Cyndaquil for a long, long, long time. And then you started to lean into that chef aspect. And I went, okay, now he's developing. And then we end up with that beautiful moment with Maestro, that evolution. So a milestone for Arjan was literally just have like a transcendent cooking experience. And then you were like, I want him to go cook with Maestro. And I go, there you go. So prime examples of this. Drip was progressing nicely as a contest performer, and he had a lot of fun moments in the limelight with the tots, but he was never a combatant. I don't care that he's not in combat. He's earning milestones for other things he's doing. So he was as far along as someone like Slurp, who saw a ton of combat with his allies. Sparring is something I completely disqualified as doing much for you, because if you spar with the same teammate over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, you're not learning anything anymore. You learned how to fight that one teammate. So I discounted that a lot. But the only other time Slurp was really in combat at first was massive forced group combat. The Arlecchino Manor fight, Slurp's out there and he's like, I'm in way over my head, because he doesn't see combat that much. So that's kind of where the influence goes if they're not a combat milestone, is find something that the player is interested for that Pokemon and reward them for following through. So that's one kind of milestone. So if we had done some more drip contests where Ben had more of an opportunity to be creative and show off Drip's abilities, he probably would have evolved during a contest, which would have been ridiculous and he would have knocked it out of the park. Monty had a milestone to earn the respect of his team, which replaced the original one of defeating Tornado one-on-one. Because after it happened, the moment just felt really hollow. Because you just steamrolled Tornado. Yeah. I was like, okay, this encounter should be roughly balanced. And you murked him in like 2 rounds. Dude couldn't do anything. So that milestone moved up, and you got a tune-up instead of an evolution. Like, I still want to reward you for what you did, but we need to move it on. So the easiest way to envision these, but the biggest reason that a lot of folks who don't use milestone XP cite for not doing it, is they happen when it feels right. It's all about feeling. So it's not just time or you've killed enough goblins. You have done something remarkable. So it's usually a cathartic RP moment, a triumph over a nemesis, saving an ally and putting yourself at risk, or you just need that extra bit of strength to protect your friends or pull through. Those are milestones. Milestones are just key moments that occur during sessions. I never had a set amount of milestones that people would need, except for a lot of the initial catches had like, okay, you need 7 or you need 5, whatever it was. But as your teams got bigger, it got a lot harder to track them. So then it just became a case of, okay, you haven't used this guy in a while. They're starting to lose progress. So that's those. Milestones are just key moments that occur. Or they could be things that you set out for your players, like a quest log. I always kept milestones a secret from the players because I'm really not a fan of murder hobo playstyles. So if I go, hey, fight this thing, you're just going to go fight it. So I like milestone more than combat XP because if you can just fight something, you're just going to fight everything. And I know the Pokemon games are 90% combat, but I wanted it to function more like D&D. So that was kind of the caveat, the trade-off that we made for the game to work. I have a cooler way to handle milestones that I'm going to be testing out in Game 2, but we're also going to be using combat XP in Game 2. So I'm going to be biting the bullet and going back completely on everything I just said. So we'll find out. The next one is kind of silly. Ren asks, did Phoebe's parents survive the end of the world? Yes, because Tia was smart and put her parents far away. And never established where they were or how to get there. So they're off in Bluefinland, and I imagine they're happily retired on a berry farm somewhere. But yeah, there's a... I know there was a huge miscommunication and a misconception from my descriptions that the entire world was killed by the flood. No. As grim as it is, think about it this way. If 200,000 people disappear out of 7 billion, it's a lot, it's a tragedy, but it's a drop in the bucket. So yes, it's global damage and devastation. Most of the world is fine and is still going. The Ice Age was localized, so it was just the Laris region and the surrounding oceans, which I know is saying just the ocean is frozen, but there's that. But yeah, we're dealing with a world that has beings like the Tidecaller and the Icebringer that can reduce the flooding of the ocean, fix things. That's why the Tidecaller was getting very short with D as he kept calling him through wave. Now I'm going to cast sending to the Tidecaller, hey, where are the escaped convicts? And he's like, bro, I'm dropping the sea level 30 feet. I don't have time. But that's kind of that on that.
Some more rapid fire.
Let's do some rapid fire YouTubes.
As far as stat blocks and everything, we're okay to move on. But people want to know, can we know how much HP the Lunark had?
It had 500 in phase 1. And that might not sound like a lot, but we'll get to it.
And then we had some questions, a couple, on Monty's evolution. As far as when did that come about?
The episode, the skill quad.
Yes.
After that one, we went out to dinner, and I said, hey, what do you want to do for Monty? And we came up with the go off on the gym challenge again, which I know was very divisive for the fan base. Some people were super hyped to see that again. Some people hated it. But that was how Monty was going to earn the respect of his team, was showing them, hey, not only can I lead you to victory, but I can fight alongside you.
Yeah. I like difficulty.
Yes.
I don't know. I think I've mentioned that in
I think it's come across a lot.
But maybe not in session. So those that aren't part of the Patreon, I enjoy difficulty. So when I originally, Drew asked, like, hey, Monty can evolve now. And I said, well, I really want him to like earn the respect of his team first, kind of thing. And then we're like, okay, we're going to do the gyms again without Milo. And my original pitch to Drew was like, okay, I want to do it where like I give a command and then I have to roll a die to see if they even listen to him.
Yeah, and I was like, you're just going to get...
And the more they succeed, the easier it gets. But the more they fail, the harder it gets. And if anyone, like morale, if it drops to 0, they'll just leave and like either come back to Milo or just leave.
Yeah.
To see how many team members he can gain the respect of. Thankfully, they absolutely crushed it.
Yeah, you guys went undefeated for a long time.
Yeah. And then kind of leading into it, how did the morale system work? Someone asked.
So morale is a system I took straight from Strongholds of Followers, Kingdoms of Warfare, MCDM Productions. So if you know roughly how that works, you'll know roughly how this one works. I gave everybody a number. If your number was higher than 10, you function as normal. If your number is lower than 10, you have a -1 to all rolls. For every number below 10 that you are, if you reach 1, you either just go berserk and panic and you hit full fight or flight, or you run, you break ranks, and you leave the team that you're on. So if someone had reached 1 or below in morale, they would have just left the top team they were on and fled. So that would have been that.
Okay. And would it have been possible for anyone to have caught a legendary or mythical?
Nope.
Okay.
Sorry. I've covered that one a lot in the lab videos, so I'm going to keep that one pretty short.
And do we have any inclination as to who has Kingpin?
No, but I am sad to report Kingpin is no longer with us.
Rip.
He was in Mayburn again.
Oof.
He became a racer. So I'm sorry. I know, heartbreaking. I was sad too.
Yeah, Devin's on vacation. Don't tell him.
Yeah, no one tell Devin. He doesn't know.
And then Lake Carter, we're going to answer your question in the Riftkin portion.
Yeah,
so
are you planning on doing more?
Not ignoring you.
Yeah. Okay, we'll do that one later.
Yeah, Chris asked, why did they only attack the Laos region?
They didn't. They attacked worldwide. That one was global, but everybody handled it differently, and I wasn't going to give you guys like global updates. You guys had enough going on locally.
Now that the lunar invasion is over, are there any stragglers, or did everyone kind of go?
Yeah. So there are stragglers in the sense that there are still moon-touched creatures in the world that need to be dealt with.
Be expunged.
But during the epilogue, I'm imagining that probably gets handled.
Dealt with most of it.
Yeah.
And then the last one right now before we move back into the...
Is Devin on another cruise?
Yeah. Not yet.
No, not yet.
Not yet. What was your favorite improv moment?
The Dittos. Hands down. That was really fun. None of that was planned. It was all just... I was like, the Dittos are just going to say back whatever they've heard. And I'll throw a couple Easter eggs into what I might have coming. So there's that. Omega asks, how did Wyman fare? He got a big spotlight in the epilogue, but Wyman did very well for himself in the aftermath of the invasion. He got a new chance at life from Phoebe. He heard about Milo's deeds and became inspired to rekindle his training. And in the end, he was truly content, and he just missed his rival as he chased success and opened his fighting school. It was the school of light up shoes.
He did not open a school. He was the only person to defeat master
all
every
of them.
school.
That's the way.
And he's the first person or team to think to do it in a group. Everyone always thought of like, oh, I have to do this and go by myself.
Yeah.
And his whole team did it, all of them together.
Did Wyman evolve in the chat? Yes, he's a 10 growth in the epilogue. Trevor Tube asks, do LGM and Behemoth that aren't lunar type exist in the world? Yes. So hopefully at any point I added lunar type or variant to the LGMs and Behemoths that were mentioned in character in the campaign. The psychic variants absolutely still exist, but not in massive numbers and with no plans for domination. They were just easily corrupted because they are from the moon, canonically. So the ones that were here are fine. The ones that came from there or were made by something that came from there were lunar type. So that's that. You guys have a lot of questions about how close was X a teammate to evolving. The biggest one is how close was Evinrude? Evinrude needed a moment, a cool moment. And the poor dude choked every time. I feel really bad for him. He just couldn't quite get there. But he was literally like, I need a cool cinematic moment for you to evolve, which is why a lot of people don't like Milestone, because XP wise, yeah, he should have gone, but alas, he didn't get there. But a few team members got evolutions because they had been on the verge and failed, like Haka and Port Thalo. He started to sprout arms, but for Evinrude, it was always he would start really strong, and then a lot of his moves had a rider attached to them, where, hey, you do this thing, but you deafen your enemy, and then that would shut down something for his allies, which is not a very cash money moment to evolve. So it was kind of rough. Pontiki was very close, but I talked with Tia about it, and she didn't want it to happen, really. But we did agree if it was going to happen, Pontiki would have been a Pudgy Pikachu and then an Alolan Raichu.
OG.
Yeah.
Because Wyman involved.
A lot of Wyman
Did
questions.
his shoes get bigger?
Well, yeah, he had to get size 12s.
Yeah.
He had to size up.
I imagine by the time he hit that point, he had the notoriety that he had. Someone would have made him some nice kicks.
Yeah.
If we could just get a quick like Nike sponsorship so we can make those IRL, I'd rock Wyman shoes.
With actual bioluminescent algae in the bottom.
Adult Skechers light ups. And I'm here.
100%.
Do we know his team? His final team?
Yes. He had a Crobat, a Nidoqueen, and an Alolan Raticate. He kept the same 3.
That's cool.
Yeah. He kept the same 3 all the way through.
Good for him.
Dante's Furnace asks, what were the Scions of Guardians we never saw, and would they have been down for Operation Moonboom or gone traitor like the Soul of Fae and the Shackled Nightmare? So we met every Guardian and Scion that I created. Canonically, yes, there would have been more for the other stones and even a few duplicates, but in terms of managing to cram all of that in that close to the end game, manage them during the emissary talk, and, you know, if I was a better prepared DM, yeah, I would have 100%, there would have been more. But I would have loved to throw a bunch of newcomers into that meeting just for the drama, but the intention for that was to put the focus on the tots and their actions being the human representatives for the emissary meeting. Volaneth asks, what was the Clefairy ritual in Xanthia? A gift from me in the past to future me. We talked about it a little bit earlier. It was either going to be something that was forever weird or it would have come back to be incredibly relevant. So if you're a new or aspiring DM, some good advice I got very early on, as evidenced by the fact that this actually came back. Put weird stuff in your game and refuse to elaborate until later. So there's that. Trevor Tube and a million other people have asked, what was in the box the Sableye had? A silk scarf. We covered it in the epilogue. It's a silk scarf. Just a very fancy scarf. Was there anything special about the parasite infesting Nipsey, and why is it our eternal Lord and Savior? Nipsey captured the hearts and minds of a nation, and that's pretty special on its own. But you guys did that. The community decided that Nipsey was the leader of a cult, and now they're on a hoodie. So they're available now, by the way.
True.
There's what was the other fossil? It was a Grotle. Who was the Rapidash that visited Bentley? And it might have been someone else. It might have been CJ. And what was their significance? It was just a neat random encounter. Something majestic for the kids to see at night to show them that the world has creatures in it that are beyond their ken right now. I used another Rapidash later on as a potential contender for the Firestone Guardian in the war, and you guys made the leap that maybe it was the same one, and I kind of laughed because I was like, no, there's more than one Rapidash. You can have more. Like Tom Woods has like 15. So there was that. What was the rest of the world like before the Waterstone detonated? Did they also have Pokemon worldwide? Were there stones and scions and stuff like that? So the world the Tots game took place in was a collection of ideas I had and the game I had run before. So I never canonically filled in any other region or locations from the games, but the players put some of that stuff into their backstories, and it worked its way into the game. I think CJ is the reason that Kanto exists canonically, and Tegan put Johto in her backstory. So there's that. The stones are a local oddity as much as any other region has its gimmicks. So there's, Galar has Dynamax, Laris has Source Stones. So there's that. What was the Cricketoon's story? It was just a fun encounter that I thought Ben would enjoy. A musician playing songs for any audience they could find. Crash was yeehawed, and I quote, to Arlecchino's encampment. Why did that happen? What was different from Crash and Evinrude being caught in a privateer ball? So the privateer ball has 2 settings. Both of them suck. So one takes the occupant, overrides their capture device, and the other sends them to Arlecchino for testing. The biggest problem at the time was Crash did not have a Pokeball that CJ had access to. So when they caught him with that, it automatically took the ball from his prior owner and shunted it and Crash to the facility, separated Crash from the ball, and then they were testing him. So that was just a very ill-advised thing for CJ to do on watch by himself alone with no input from anyone else.
Couple more questions from chat.
Okay, we'll jump back.
Austin, our resident Gopher Lord.
Gopher Lord.
How you doing?
Hello.
Asks, basically, can we get Ty's epilogue?
Ty became the bug-type gym leader.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Are you talking about Lyle?
Yes.
Okay.
Talking about Lyle.
Yes.
Ty just survives.
He just enjoys his life.
He just lived. That's all you can hope for a boy that age that exploded. Yes, Ty lived. He had a great time. I like to imagine he stuck around, helped rebuild Wadalonga, hung out with Diego and Isabel. It's just what he does. He's just there for a good time.
Still giving out Ty 5s.
100%.
Nice. Bookworm asked, who sat the Volcarona flew away. Was anyone interested in catching it if possible, and what could it do?
It had stat blocks. They're hiding in one thing or another. I have like 80 Google Docs of places that you guys went and could go.
I don't imagine...
I don't think anybody was down to catch a fully evolved thing that late.
Yeah.
Because I kind of made it obvious a lot. It's much better to develop your team as they grow than it is to catch something super strong and have it. Case in point is Bang. Bang got really, really strong, evolved into a Primeape, and then stuck there and was really, really busted. So, there's that. Lost my train of thought. What could it do? I know it had, it had like a heat wave infestation.
Just Volcarona things.
Yeah, just bug things.
And then Evie asking about the horse creature. We're going to get to that in a bit.
I'll cover that.
Did you talk to Tia about going to Blue Finland? I think that is an anime.
That is an anime canonical location.
Yeah.
It is called Blue Finland. She saw it and went, "Oh my god,
that's hilarious."
That's where I'm from.
And that's where I'm from. Yep.
So yes.
Who is stronger, Ty or Lyle?
Ooh, I think it's Lyle.
Lyle,
because Ty is happy-go-lucky, and Lyle is driven.
Yeah.
He's ready to win.
And I don't know how to ask this really, but had Dial-Up become a Magnezone, how do you imagine those 3 very different Magnemites?
There's a reason I never did it. Because Dial-Up would have lost a lot of charm if he became very sleek and normal.
Okay.
So that's part of it. He probably would have just kept the weird rusted octagonal thing.
And in your opinion, who do you think was the most well-developed tot?
Well-developed? Like,
which one was the best cooked is the exact question.
Yes,
but I'm
because you were
old.
seasoned in the fires. The most well-developed tot from a personality standpoint, I think, was Phoebe. She ended up, from the beginning to the end, she had, I think, the healthiest arc. Because she never had world-ending trauma thrown specifically at her.
I was going to say D. I feel like...
D, yeah, but D also started on a pretty even keel.
Yeah.
So he was, he started normal and kind of went there. I don't know. That's a tough one to answer. It's a tie maybe between D and Phoebe. I'd put it at that.
Between Ty and Lyle.
Yeah, tie between Ty and Lyle.
Okay. And then with 2 more that just came in.
Yeah.
What was your favorite Pokemon to design?
The Shackled Nightmare, and I'm sad we never got art of it, but I didn't think we were going to need it. And then I was like, dang it, that would have been really fun. But I loved the idea of like a Dracula coffin that's been chained shut and it's just screaming. But in terms of like tot design, Quilava Arjan, I think, takes the cake. Or Claremont. Either one.
Claremont was pretty great.
Yeah.
And could Bang have evolved into Annihilate? I know you've answered that a couple times.
If Jordan had wanted it, we would have talked about it. But it never came up, so I never pursued it. I mentioned it a lot. A ton of the times, way later in the game, new games would come out, new evolutions would be released, and I'm like, I can't deal with this. No. So a lot of the newer stuff, I'm sorry to say, just was never going to happen. If Jordan had really wanted it, absolutely. But it was never a thing that he brought up to me. And whenever we talked about it, it was kind of like, oh, that thing's kind of cool, I guess. So it wasn't like a huge thing. Let me tackle a few more from the doc. Were there any people of significance in Ridgemont Manor's ballroom that the tots and audience missed? No, just a few Easter eggs to some lost sessions and a few new interactions that would have happened if the Ridgemont arc had gone as long as it was supposed to. What was the outcome and original reason of the expedition that Tegan's parents were on? The world will never know because I don't know. I had a general idea of what was going to happen. I had planned to make an uncharted style journal of puzzles and hints that would pop up as part of Tegan's story, but Kelsey stepped away before we made any progress and really started it. But I'm a believer in never wasting any prep, so the bits I had done were thrown into the world. So you guys saw everything that I had for Tegan's story. So that's that on that. Was there anything that you added that nobody ever caught, both players and audience? Yes. I talked about it at the meetup, but somewhere in one of Phoebe's gym sessions, there is a non-canonical cameo from Universes Beyond. Woody Woodpecker features at one point for about 3 frames, and no one has ever mentioned it. So there's that. There's a ton of references to an old Ghostbusters game that I'm pretty sure only I have ever played. I streamed it, and a bunch of people in the chat were like, wait, I know this. What the heck? The name for the War of the Architects is from the Ghostbusters game. There's a ton of like name references. I don't know. I was a huge fan of that game, and I snuck a Marshadow into the campaign for Mythical fans out there, but nothing ever panned out. Where did that one Joltik that hung out with Bentley go? When the teams got really big, I developed an easy come, easy go attitude with followers. So we already had done my time with Sudowoodo and Pendleton and Ona and a million others where you guys would befriend them and try to like kind of get around. I know it wasn't malicious, but try to get around the team limit of what you could have with you. But you guys told me more than I did. You would forget to use them for anything. And I've got enough to track and you've got enough to track. And it's a million other things. So I kind of got this attitude of like, catch it or don't. So when Joltik was around for like 6 sessions and nothing happened, and someone forgot about him for more than a minute, they're out of here. Because if you wanted to catch him, you had ample time. That's kind of my attitude with that. What are the chances that had the moon not been an egg and wanted to eat reality, Wyman Coover could have overtaken the tots and become champion of the Laris region before any of the tots? I probably would have done it. Because it would have been really funny if they walk into Champions Chambers, you see the dull glow of bioluminescent sneakers and a smug expression, and I just say roll initiative. That would have been really fun. Where was the ring of Sweeney Poacher's plotline going? It went to Alluvia. Dino and Ernie were in the ring, but the gang left really fast, so I let Joel handle it with the Pokemon Cops one shot. And he did a great job.
That was fun.
Yeah. If the sun tried to take over reality and the moon tried to hatch and kill everything, was the planet going to do anything wild? I mean, probably, yeah. That sounds like a no-win scenario for everybody. And last but not least from this big batch, this was all one chunk of questions. What was the true origin of the feud between Blue and the Prime Mind? Would Blue have gone to the dark side with all the stones? The truth is exactly as I described it. The Prime Mind had the dark psychic and ghost stones. Blue had every other stone in some way, shape, or form. Blue wanted the last 3, and the Prime Mind stood between her and her goal. Arceus saw the potential devastation if they went all out, so they got sealed away. Blue was meant to be a commentary on how ruthless you have to be to actually be the best in any game, and it was meant to be a foil for Bentley's plan. I want to be the best that ever was. I want to be the champion. Can you do what it takes? And Blue was to kind of show that. But Blue had no moral issues with any part of the champion's path and was ready to do a lot worse things in pursuit of that goal. I know it's come up a few times in the chat already, but Bookworm wanted to know, does Milo stay dead? Yes, sadly. We covered that in the epilogue, but a lot of these questions are from before epilogue was live. So, just so it's out there. And who takes up the second half of the Psychic Stone guardianship? Who do you guys think would be a good replacement? Because I don't have an answer for you. I think it'd be a lot more fun to theorycraft that. So Joel, this one's for you.
Okay.
Did you know that Milo was going to die no matter what?
No. We talked about this at the live meetup, and we had a lot of time to prepare for the final fight. We had already done parts 1 and 2 of the Amber Crag Siege, and then we had, I think, 2 weeks.
2 weeks in between
to prep for the actual final fight. I, as a player, was like, we're going to do this. I'm going to do everything in my power. I can't wait to win. And I sat down with anyone that was willing and spent well over an hour min-maxing, combining abilities across the team to give everyone the best chance. I think I helped like maybe 20 different top Pokemon get to a 20 AC. Everyone was outputting like double damage to what they normally do.
Yeah.
We had set up the Gluck Rain Rangers pit where we had like Pip's Clear Skies ability, even letting fire types do their regular max damage instead of being hindered by the rain. It was this whole thing, and we like strategized the map and we were doing all this stuff, and I was so confident. And then even I think Drew had mentioned, he's like, hey, you have the ability to do this still if you need to, like the papers exist. And I told him, I was like, nah, I don't need it. We're
he
gonna
was
win.
very confident.
Very confident.
To the point that I went, okay, I'm not even going to show you.
I had written my entire epilogue planning to be alive.
Yep.
And maybe at some point I can share what that was and
Brutal.
just share what I had written for my actual character epilogue. But no, I did not know. I was so convinced that I was not going to that it didn't even register as a possibility.
Yeah.
So kind of the opposite.
Yeah, because from my end, all I told him was, hey, if you feel like it's necessary and you think you would give your life to save your friends, you can try. But there was a possibility that he could have lived, because I know that's going to come up. He absolutely could have lived. Every time I called for a madness roll in the finale, I needed you to roll below the number I asked for. So that was an inverted DC. Yeah. When I say your DC is 5, I need you to roll a 1 to 4. And one time you rolled below.
Yeah.
And then you used inspiration to get out. And I was like, well, I can't tell you not to do that.
Yeah.
So you were dodging madness, but that's how Milo was going to claw his way back, was driving himself and the Prime Mind insane to split them back up.
Oops.
So yes, there was a chance to do that. But the more you used your abilities, the more exhausted the Prime Mind would be, and the higher the chance were that you could get out. Gotcha. So the other way, and this is a really cheap shot, but if any of the players had genuinely just burst into tears, I would have let you out. Because no dice roll matters in the face of genuine emotional attachment. But I was like, man, only you and I are like, you're on the verge of tears. I'm choking up. And Jordan goes, is that enough? And then we all started laughing. I go, well, it's not going to happen now.
Yep. Oh, well.
Rough. But it happened.
Is what it is.
This is an important one that a lot of you have asked.
And then we'll jump back to some chat.
Are there going to be future one-shots to wrap up some things for the TOTS campaign, or will everything be in this Pearly Gates and that's that? As of now, there are 0 plans to return to the Laris region. We are moving forward. The focus for us right now is moving into Game 2, developing the new world, the new game system, the Riftkin monsters, all of that stuff. The epilogues were designed for the players to wrap up any loose ends that they had. I gave them free range. They could do whatever they wanted. They didn't have to clear anything with me. I was very honest in that epilogue. I was hearing all that stuff for the first time as well. So that was their chance to kind of do that. We did a check-in session for any of you DMs out there behind the screen. Every couple weeks leading up to the finale, between the point where I knew that Ben and Jordan were not going to be joining us for Game 2, I made sure to, every couple weeks, recalibrate with the team. Hey, are we moving too fast towards the end? Are there things you want to do? I made sure we hit everything that people brought up to me before the campaign ended. We handled all that stuff as much as we could. So as far as I'm concerned, there's nothing left to wrap up for those stories because the Laris region was never the focus. It was always the tots, and the tots story is wrapped up. So right now, I have no plans to go back to that. Let's do some YouTube chat questions.
This was a fun one. Were there any other top Pokemon that you could have seen getting a special evolution, i.e. Bladian, or like a made-up one? Any that didn't evolve that you're like, oh, I could see this going a fun way?
Probably. If we had kept going, I would have kept looking for places to innovate. Because Violet, I feel like, evolved so early and then just plateaued. And I went, that's kind of lame. And we had so long to figure out how to make that better. And by that point, I just decided to not care about balance. So Bladian was a lot more fun. There's that. But yeah, I don't know. Specifically, I have no idea. I probably would have talked with Dev for Neek about like a more limber Sceptile with some different things, because I know he wanted to use the Grovile leaf as like the toolkit. So we probably would have done some stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. Offhand, I'm not sure.
And then Sam asked if there was a favorite tot power, like the Portent Dice or the Helios stuff, or like any of the supernatural stuff that we were getting.
I was really proud of the Helios stuff. So being big rip. But again, anytime the players didn't follow through on a plot hook or something, that's fine. That's the story that they wanted to follow. So easy come, easy go with that. The Portent Dice I knew were going to be really strong. So I wouldn't say they're my favorite, but I needed some way to show you that you are getting so intelligent that you are seeing things before they happen. And there's not a great way to do that without just explaining to the players at the table what's going on. So looking back, I probably would have lifted the veil a little bit and just kind of explained how those worked to everybody. So it wasn't just a big surprise. But yeah, it would probably have been the Helios powers. That's probably what it would have been.
Okay, cool. Did Phoebe ever decide to go be with Ridgemont? I don't think so.
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think she took him up on that offer. She just wanted a normal life.
Yeah.
Everything that happened between Ridgemont and Phoebe was because we're family. So obviously Troy wants Tia to have the best character. So he's just trying to give her everything he had. And I was like, okay, man, you keep doing your thing. So, yeah, I don't think she ever did, because she was never fully on board with that. She just wanted Ridgemont Manor, and she wanted to get her friends out of there safe. So she kind of said and did whatever she had to.
Yeah, she wasn't one of the two perfect little boys.
Yes, the two perfect little boys. Just the most uncomfortable sentence in the entire campaign, I think. There are a lot, and I think that one takes the cake for me.
Pretty bad.
Yeah, there's... Do we got another one in there? Should we jump back?
You can do some.
Okay. Ithalus asks, the question I have for you is, what will happen with the Team Rocket presence in the region? I know it was discussed prior to the invasion, but it all kind of went to the wayside afterwards. Is Team Rocket still a looming presence, or did they book it out of there when the invasion started? So CJ covered this a lot in the epilogue, and Milo's team did as well. You guys had the Team Rocket raid of the schools and all of that and such. So Team Rocket is a global thing. I'm sure it will be global again someday. But it's always awkward to put Team Rocket schemes because they are so all over the board. If I go with the source material, they have to be threatening but goofy and largely ineffectual, which why bother? Or they have to be like a genuinely deadly threat so that they're not written off completely. So, yeah, if CJ hadn't been a member of Team Rocket, I would not have put Team Rocket in the game. We would have had the Privateers, or I would have made another team to be involved. But yeah, they definitely took a backseat for a while, especially when the gang got away from Alluvia. I threw in a couple things like them stealing all of the Mareeps, because you gotta throw in a little bit, but that's that.
I had one in the detective one-shot series.
Yeah.
I don't think we only aired one.
Yeah,
I don't know
because
if we ever did
you
two.
guys did one. It was like a night heist with one of the Reggies, right?
We did I think we recorded 5 detective one-shots in an arc.
Yeah.
And they were like Team Glyph, and they were trying to catch all the Reggies so that they could control Reggie Gigas. I think.
That was honestly like really a cool plot line. So, yeah, maybe we'll have to see if we still have those. Samurai Sam asks, the stag left through the realm through a rift. Will Bentley's stats continue to normalize in its absence? I know he gave a lot to the Hearthstone, and the stag was helping to reset those debuffs. And this may have been addressed in the epilogue or had enough time passed to reset those stats already, and he's basically back to normal. So yes, Arceus did leave the world behind. And no, the blessing of the stag goddess faded when his necklace popped and she left. But his stats will develop as he gets older. He's still like 12, so there's plenty of time for him to develop strength and dexterity, and learn to talk to people with charisma and all that stuff. So he will grow normally from there. Slam into that. Trevor Tube asks, what were the saddest deaths? Maestro. Obviously, Milo was devastating, but Maestro hurt me because I knew what happened to him while we were having the Maestro and Arjan. I was like, this is going to be bad. So that one really hurt, and I really twisted the knife with Joel while we were there. So that sucked. 132-658 asks, what was the plan with Mox Eterna? It barely matters, but there was we covered it a little bit earlier, but there was an entire other plot in mind involving the psionic forces working to liberate all captured Pokemon and reunite in a war against humanity. Rather than lurchers and amalgams, it would have had human capture devices and things would have gotten really gross. But that plan died on the runway, so it really doesn't matter. Ravivin asks a question that you guys will have to answer for me. Did anyone else in CJ's family redeem themselves like Theo Jr.? I put that in the court of public opinion. If you guys think they redeemed themselves, let me know.
A quick check-in. How we doing on that list?
We are, it's hard to say, I'm on page 14. The stat blocks are several pages, and you guys want to know a lot about Monocos, and I think that's a 3-page script on its own. So we're probably about halfway through.
Okay.
So I'll do some of these a lot faster.
I want to ensure we get to answer some Riftkin questions, because
Yes.
I've been collecting them from the chat.
Yes.
So we'll give another half an hour or so for these.
Okay. Here we go. When did you intend for everything like Source Stones, Mr. Mime to take place? And did the players push the timeline of anything up drastically? I put a ton of catalysts in the world and let the players run into them at their own pace. But once you knock a domino over, I would start to keep track of the thread. So if they never broke into the new tree compound, we would never have met Arlecchino. We would never have known about his schemes, and the game probably looks exceptionally different from how it does now. When creating the Scions of the Stones, what made you choose the Pokemon that you did? In general, I tried to pick Pokemon that I didn't like to give them a chance to shine. So some of them I thought would be a lot cooler if they had an aesthetic twist, like the Shackled Nightmare. I just kind of went for it, but it was a mix of inspiration, underappreciated critters, and a very clear signal that these things were not to be messed with. So I needed something that no one was going to just throw a great ball at and just start a fight and get killed. This one is kind of silly, but I mean, my answer to it's very silly. It's a perfectly fair question. What did you think of the Tots splitting up after they agreed to stay together after learning of the Oni? It's really easy to judge in hindsight, but the Tots were never dead set on splitting up. It was more of an agreement that they wouldn't discuss anything that they have done with NPCs, including their parents. So as a DM, it was a real head-scratcher watching all of them break that rule immediately. But as a DM, I try not to overthink their actions, and I try not to judge because I knew what was going on and they didn't. So, you know, especially with a shape-shifting demigod, it's kind of awkward to be like, you idiots. Like, I knew what was there. They had no idea. But they all broke their rule of let's not talk about anything. Tying into the Scions, though, how did you pick the names for them? I'm a huge fan of elaborate titles, so making those was really easy. I've said it a billion times now, and you guys are probably sick of hearing it, but I'm a huge fan of Dune. And while I can't speak Chekhovsa, I do have Google Translate to get me pretty close. And I just took a few liberties with pronunciation along the way. So Ren asks, what happened to the Onyx after the meeting with the emissary? The Onyx will recover. It'll be fine. Once the emissary was detonated, there really wasn't anything left to concentrate on the month-long stun, so he bounced back okay. He just got wounded pride. What happened to CJ's family? We covered them in the epilogue. Was there ever a plan to continue the story after the moon, or was that supposed to be it? Nope. That was just kind of hard to top, and the game had to end eventually. And I knew we were on a clock with Ben and Jordan. We only had so much time left before they were kind of looking to be done. So had to keep it on the move. Not to say that they rushed anything. Again, we had those meetings constantly of like, hey, are we covering everything everybody wants to? But we just kind of ran out of things to do. So, time to move on. Did Adiola ever fully recover? Yeah, they rebuilt in the epilogue, as we've now seen. Little bit about the Northern Kingdom, but we covered that a little bit ago. And why couldn't Ridgemont or anyone else save Milo? They would have had 10 days to save him, so theoretically it could be done. So Lord Ridgemont, in his own words, already tried. He gave them 3 ambrosias with the explicit intention that they be saved for use on the tots. They used all 3 of them on CJ's family and his Pokemon, and Troy said Lord Ridgemont will not help anyone but Phoebe. In his estimation, he gave them exactly what they would have needed to succeed, and they chose to save creatures instead of their own lives. They made their choice. So, no. That is why he did not step in and refused to. Okay. Voloneth wants to know, can you give us some details of stats and stuff for big NPCs? Specifically about Mox. Mox did not get a stat block because he died immediately. He had HP and armor class, and then he died. So I'll make a separate video for the Arlecchino Manor fight to show how I plan boss fights. I will make you a video for the same video for Arlecchino, Gravetender, and Kaya's stats. And I will make a separate one for the Lunark fight that was planned, because that is what Omega wants to know. So those, again, I don't have a great way to do those live on stream without me just reading you 30 pages of text. Arlecchino's overall plot. Who did he work with? How did he end up in the Moon Pact? How did him and Kaya join up? What are more details on his 2 sides? I will cover that right now. Arlecchino was an immortal scientist focused on pushing the limits of his peers. He's from a terrible deal in ages past with a powerful Gravetender, not ours, but one of them. He found himself unable to die no matter how many times he's killed. So Arlecchino, this is from the Lord Ridgemont document, so this is how I briefed him on this thing. Arlecchino is a highly skilled remnant of the good old days. Through his many long years, he's experienced dozens of gruesome deaths befitting someone of his station. He's seen kingdoms rise and fall, many by his own schemes. Arlecchino's most recent defeat at the hands of children stings him the worst, and his current stay in the space between worlds has only served to heighten his madness. He's always been powerful, but within the manor, he knows his place, which is why he's Claudio in there. Lord Ridgemont has power over him. He has influence. He's entertained many parties over the century, and he will answer to your beck and call. So there's that. He's worked with the privateers and the Rocket Gang at various different times, operated his own smuggling and shipping lanes, Arlecchino Freight, and had years of research detonated by a couple kids messing around. He wound up in the Moon Pact while he was drifting in the space between worlds. He was contacted by the subconscious of the dormant Lunark, offering power for freedom. Arlecchino saw his only desire to destroy the children who had wronged him, so he took the deal. He took the power to breach the tots where they thought they were the safest, and in return, he would ensnare as many of their Pokemon as possible to moon touch them, heralding the destruction of the world. You guys were the first. Kaya similarly desired the destruction of the children that had killed her, so those two just happened to want the same thing at the same time, and were both stuck in the space between worlds, where the Lunark had influence. So Arlecchino is literally a character from the Commedia dell'arte, which if you're familiar with like theater stuff, I'm a theater kid, so sorry. But he's the servant clown, sometimes to 2 masters. That is what his name means. So his entire existence is a reference to early playwrights. If I had known about the Council of Mimes from the Pokemon Unite stream days, they would have 100% just been the bad guys. His other side was Troy's idea. I told him about Arlecchino having 2 masters, and he wanted to be one of them to scare CJ in an effort to get the tombstone. Thus, you have Claudio coming out of the fireplace. That's Arlecchino's entire shtick. That is everything I have on him. He could do anything that he wanted as long as he mimed it. Then we have Arlecchino's stat blocks, all that stuff, and we jump on down. Now we've got a rapid-fire one from over here, and then I'll check in with YouTube chat. What would have happened to the Gravetender if CJ and Phoebe hadn't let him out? We would never have met him, and nothing ghostly would have ever happened. How did Arlecchino escape from the box? We just kind of covered it. But the biggest thing, The tots fell for his illusion every single time when he showed off the key pieces. They all showed him exactly where they kept them. So he encountered the Lunarch in the space between and took a deal to get out, trading his immortality for revenge. Ill-advised, but he thought it would work. What was the whole Groundhog Day sequence with Bentley? I like to mess with the players, and I took a chance on something, and when we tried it out, I sent a text to everyone but Ben, and I said, hey, just go along with anything. None of this is real. So just don't react no matter what happens. So that's why Milo was like, oh, cool, a Zapdos, whatever. You want to race?
Yeah.
I was just messing around. Can we get a list of everything that Metronome can do? Truly, whatever page in the player's handbook of 5th edition D&D has the Sorcerer's Wild Magic table. On occasion, if they rolled something that didn't work, I would pick something at random, alter a spell or a move effect and flavor it a little bit, but that was it. I didn't want to do too much work with that. So, simple as best. How did the Otherworld fare with the new Egg Moon Overlord? Who can say? Let's check in with YouTube while I scroll through. Everybody wants to know everything about Monacos. The only thing I'll cover will be the horse creature, and then we'll move on.
Was there anything about the Soul Forge in Xantha that was not just like a blacksmithing metal?
Yes, they used a solar source stone to power it.
Oh.
Everybody writes Soul Forge with a U, but it's soul like sun. S-O-L. So Soul Forge.
Yes.
That's why they were initially meant... They were a boom town with mining and stuff, because they could make stuff that no one else could make.
When Wadsworth and Phoebe went to go purify the Steelix, would he have become an Onyx?
Yes, because that was not his original form. That was grafted onto him with a metal coat, and they removed that with the purification.
And any guesses as to Ridgemont's alignment?
I mean, he was supposed to be lawful neutral, but I think he ended up being like chaotic neutral. He was like, I'm out for me. I want what I want. By the end, especially, he was leaning like chaotic evil. He's like, the tots have to die. And I was like, can you relax?
And then just a quick reminder, I am collecting Riftkin questions for later.
Yes.
I'm not ignoring you.
Yes, the Riftkin questions we will get to soon. I'm just going to try to buzz through a bunch of Pearly Gate stuff real quick. Chris asks, what was the horse crow thing in Green Gate? You all want to know. It was a horrible monstrosity. I saw a really cool piece of art that we don't have the rights to share because it's not ours. So maybe I'll post it in the Discord or something, art and memes, because I don't know who made it. So it had stats, it had attacks, it would have been a deadly encounter. But sometimes I really love to just break my own rules and put something that doesn't fit with the game theme and just put it in front of the players and get ready to kill them and just see what happens. So that was one of those times. Some questions are coming in about Monacos. There will be an entire video about Monacos. Don't fret. It's 3 pages of how I design encounters, how I build towns. It seems like a great lab video. So we'll handle that one on its own. Trevor Tube wants to know what happened to Eves and Evander and the little mini quest of bringing Eves back. What would that have been like? So Evander's boat was destroyed in the Watalonga blast and he was killed, which allowed Eves to escape captivity. The quest the boys are meant to go on would have been set up as a heist, but knowing how the boys handled all of the quests I gave them, I have no idea how it would have turned out. Ren asks, can Ridgemont control the concept of time in both directions? We know he can slow time down, but can he make a millennia pass in a day? No, he can only slow time down. He could stretch out a second into a lifetime, but he cannot make it go faster. I know a lot of people just want to know how come he couldn't give you more ambrosia. That is literally the blood of Arceus. That's not something he can get reliably. So, especially once she left, there's no way to get more. So once Arceus left, there is no more ambrosia in the world. Ginger asks, was there anything left unresolved as a DM that you wish had been delved into deeper? There's a lot of times in a lot of the sessions where I'd have something kind of ready and the gang would hard pivot and go somewhere else, but that's just DMing. So, we'll probably just see some of those plot hooks reskinned and thrown into game 2. What would have happened if the burial dancer had worked on Halakino? I would have just murked him. He would have been stripped from the mortal coil and reduced to dust because it was creative. Could Helios actually have saved Dragon for Bentley, or was it all in his mind? He did. He brought Dragon back. He would have fully revived Dragon if Bentley had rolled well enough. But everything from Helios was a game of chance. It was always, maybe I'll help you, maybe I won't. Obviously, there are repercussions to each player's actions and potential outcomes of each character. Were foreshadowed in CJ's nightmare. If the team had approached the final battle with those powers, how do you think it would have changed the outcome? It would have been drastically shorter and much more player-centered. I don't think your Pokemon would have been in danger at all. But given the opposing forces at their back, there's a strong chance that a lot of people do not survive. Because the point of that was to pit the 5 of you against each other. So thankfully, that one didn't play out. That was just one possible ending. Milo's vision was partially true. How did you plan that when you originally gave that reading to Milo? I didn't think I'd pull it off, but I offered Joel the Polytrades kit, and he didn't and still doesn't really know what I meant because I refused to elaborate. But I wanted to show him a future that he wouldn't want, give him powers that would set him on that path, and leave it up to him to not let it happen. And he did his darndest until the very end. How come we don't see other psychic/psychic type people Pokemon similar to Mox Eterna? How come Mox wasn't eaten by the Flesh Ball? So we never saw another because Mox didn't make it, so he didn't get to find the strongholds that had more people in it. We probably would have seen dozens more like him if he didn't get killed. And he wasn't eaten by the Flesh Ball because that's not what they do. The Flesh Ball, used as instructed, would ensnare a human mind and bend it to the controller's will, up to and including genetic modification. So that's why he became an Abra. The secret, not so secret war at times sounded like it was recent enough that most people over the age of 30 or 40 knew about it and may have contributed to it. How many of those flesh Pokeballs were actually around during that war, and would the humans actually have recognized it? So the players all got screwed by their choice of choosing young characters. Most adults don't want to discuss the horrors of war with children, even less so when those wounds are fresh and horrifying. So during the war, there were thousands of flesh ball devices, and yes, absolutely, most if not every adult would recognize them on sight. What would have been your inspiration for the Lunar Emissary, and can we see or hear how much worse it would have been? Lunark stat blocks, I'll go through what that combat would have looked like. Without the Tots ascending to their mantles, that fight was impossible. So without Moon Boom, this campaign does not have a happy ending. So praise Milo. But the Emissary visually is inspired by Ashiok from Magic the Gathering. We sent that over to our artist, and I said, hey, can you make this scarier and also from the moon? And he did a great job. So there's that. Banandolf asks, were all the team members that came back from the moon, Dragon, Gumi, Huntail, etc., were they all becoming amalgams? No. They would have ended up like the Polytoads or the Noivern, so a corrupted lunar version of themselves, which we saw a lot of the design coming through on most of those. Their primary goal was to blend in and corrupt the Tot teams from within. That was part of the Lunark side of the deal for Arlecchino, is I will destroy the children in the worst way. Excuse me. Dante's Furnace asks, what was the legend they missed during the trip to Monacos? It's a whole plot hook that we'll cover there, but it was a Marshadow. It was going to haunt somebody forever. But Andolph asks, was the Celebi they ran into doing anything behind the scenes time travel-wise? No, it was just a forest spirit looking after the gang on their journey, and definitely had a direct hand in Sage's slaughter of the Skill Quad. Any name or behind-the-scenes storyline for that Team Rocket admin they encountered in Episode 4 in the Siege of Hillmouth? No, not that guy. They were just some fodder rocket goons to throw at the party early on. In Hillmouth, the admin names were Norin, Mika, and Carlisle. They were intended to be recurring silly rocket members, but they got wrecked so hard, it didn't make sense to bring them back for any reason. Did all the Fight Pitmons have names from the start? Ava aside, and whatever happened to Primal Artillery? No, they were just designs I thought would be cool, and the ones that returned got show names as a send-off. Primal Artillery was Lynn the Primal Blaster. She was in the Siege of Hillmouth, so we saw her again. Is Cups the Artillery that Bentley encountered way back when? No, Cups was just a gift for Devin. Besides Cups, what other Pokemon could D or the Tots have gotten from Tom Woods? Pretty much anything if the game went on long enough or if the Tots were persistent enough in asking. The electric type that was on the table was an Elekid. The team sizes were already so bloated, most of you guys didn't want anything else. So there's that. We're getting closer to the end here. Dante's Furnace wants to know, were there plans to have CJ's family appear physically? Did the Tots swerve them by catching on to an early scheme? Like the tracker placed in Monty, what would have happened if that wasn't in place or had they never found it? So most of CJ's family interactions that I had planned got placed in. I couldn't have them happen too often or they would have lost their impact. If every 3 sessions someone from CJ's family is showing up and causing a ruckus, it kind of loses the impact. But specifically the tracker was something I threw at Joel to sow chaos because he asked if something was off with Monty. I took that opportunity to go, yes, something is off with Monty. Yes, that makes sense. So that was an example of the players had a cooler idea than anything I had planned, so I let them be right. I'm a huge proponent of that. Numar wants to know what was the plan with Helios had Milo not brought him to the moon. Helios and Blue were going to kill Bentley, enhance the Heartstone that Blue had in her possession by absorbing all of Bentley's stats into the Heartstone, putting him in the book and gaining another superpower. She would have officially joined the Defense Force at Fola if Amber Crag fell. That was the plan for Blue. Trevor wants to know, expanding on that, what did I think Milo was going to do in the situation where you brought Helios to the moon, and how did I have to adjust my plan? So I didn't adjust my plan at all. I left that up to Milo to solve, and those emphasis rolls were on your side. So I had I don't know, 17 pages of plans of how I thought things might go out. None of them involved him taking Helios and not Wadsworth. So as soon as he took Helios and not Wadsworth, I thought for sure he's going to die. But he made it, and it was great, and I thought it was incredible. Florida, you asked a difficult question. What's your favorite team member? I don't know. I say it a lot, but I think it's a tie between Arjan and Neek. The Neek and Milo sync up where they could talk was just too good. So probably that. What would have happened with the Oni if CJ and Bentley hadn't encountered it? The Oni player would have continued to strategize, and who knows? Chris asks, who was Scarlet? A contact that CJ had in Team Rocket. Just a person. It was originally going to be one of his sisters, but it ended up being just a way to get CJ some gear during downtime. It would have been a cool twist to have it be his father, but I never pursued that either. Super quick and easy one. Was the reason Spencer was never attacked in Xantha because they knew he was a ghost? Yes. Lucas wants to know, not sure if somebody asked, but is the next story going to be Pokemon-based? We're going to get into this very shortly. But no, if you haven't watched the Winter Direct from yesterday, go check that out. We break down everything that we're going to do. We'll be playing in a new setting using our own game system with our own custom creatures. It's called Riftkin and the Rift system. We're super excited about it. But no, we've kind of told the Pokemon story we want to tell. Now we want to do it at something else. Glue Monkey asks maybe the most burning question of all time. What's in William's bag? 3 Amber Balls, a Golden Alluvia Ball, a Dawnstone, $212, 3 potions, a Revive Crystal, several dozen buttons, pins, and other small metal objects, a pocket knife, and Lord Ridgemont's pocket watch. I refuse to elaborate on how or when these things were stolen because I don't remember. But I had the list going forever. Dante's Furnace asks, it's been said again and again that Joel thought of retiring Milo a couple times if he was able to pull it off. Do you remember the character you were thinking of replacing him with?
Do you?
I believe you were going to be a painter with a Schnauzer Schmiergel.
Yeah.
And I was so excited, and then I donked it up with that stupid improv line about the mailboat. The mailboat, I messed up, and I should have just retconned. That's stupid. The mailboat guy was supposed to take Milo back to Amber Crag. We were going to retire Milo at least for a while and bring that guy in.
Yeah. I realized at that point in the campaign that my goals I'd set as a character were pretty short-sighted, and I was going to accomplish them pretty quickly, and I didn't have much else to go off in that time. So I wanted to either just retire him, and sorry, I'm super congested. I was going to get up and blow my nose, and then this question...
You've been stopped.
He was either going to go retire and become a mailman with his Murkrow, and that was going to be the end of it, or go off, start to do that, and find another purpose.
Yeah.
And have a new set of goals, and it would give me time to like develop it.
Yeah, because we were going to sit down for a few weeks and be like, hey, let's reevaluate Milo.
Yeah.
Because we set out expecting to play for like 3-4 months. That was the only game I had run was 3 months long. So I was like, yeah, we can do this in 3 months.
Yeah.
That's enough time to do 8 gyms with 5 people. No problem. Here we are 5 years later.
Yeah. But yeah, Drew's correct. I was going to play a painter character.
I don't know that he had a name, or if he did, I never heard it.
No, I never got that far.
Yeah.
I was still developing him. He had a Smeargle, but he was like Schnauzer based, so he had the beard. like Grover.
Yeah, it would have been
you
Grover.
guys have seen him in there.
Yeah. The star of the show, the real star.
And it was gonna be his kind of shtick was he was trying to find his muse, and so he had heard of these kids that were going around doing all these crazy things, and he wanted to follow them to be like the kid from The Incredibles on the bike, like waiting for something cool to happen because he wanted to paint it. So he was gonna be a little bit of an instigator because he wanted cool things to happen. So
get him in trouble.
Yeah, so that they'd have to like do stuff and he could see cool things. So that was the character.
Yeah.
I'm gonna blow my nose.
Yeah, there's a second half of that for, was there a plan for CJ? No, because I didn't tell Jordan until he gave up the tombstone how close he was to losing his character. He didn't know. So there was never a conversation of like, hey, you better back off on this. I was just going to let him get in over his head. Carrying on from there, Dante's Furnace wants to know, was Mega Evolution ever a thing that was floated around for the tots, whose mons could? No, at least not directly. I mentioned it earlier. I don't like the battle gimmicks from the games. I don't like Dynamax. I don't like Mega Evolution. I don't like Z moves. I feel like they all reduce battles to like rock, paper, scissors instead of strategy. It's just, I send out my strongest thing, I Mega Evolve, and then you can't do anything about it. Or I Dynamax, and you have to do the same thing, or you can't even hurt me. So I'm not a huge fan of those. I batted around mechanics for all of them for a while we were on one of the breaks, and then I just decided to do none of them. I was like, I don't want to open this door because it's going to be a mess. And as soon as I let them do Mega Evolution, that's going to further complicate their issues that they kept bringing up where, hey, my team is too big, and I feel like I can't use a variety of them. Negative 24 asks, if I were to have had a character to play as, what would be my team of 5 to 6, and or what few Pokemon would I focus on? So this is really tough because beyond, I would have started with a Chikorita. I know what you're thinking. Why not start with a Wooper? Because if I start with a Wooper, my life is complete, and I would never go adventuring. So I stuck the Pokemon that I liked in front of the players. So if I was to pick, I have 4 that I would love to have. It would be a Stunky, a Chikorita, a Wooper, and a Chatot. But beyond that, it would be incredibly situational. Those are like dream picks or things that I've used in off-camera one-shots or test games. I used a Stunky in an off-screen one-shot. It was really fun. So probably would have used those 4. But beyond that, I don't know. It would depend on how the game was going. Similar to the last couple, what were some backup characters or ideas similar to the players, or did we have any other potential players that didn't get to be a part of the campaign and what their characters would have been? To go really fast, there were a bunch of players I would have loved to sneak into the table over the years. See every one-shot guest star. See Dean in Ragnarok. But we can't have a table of 9 players week to week. But that's usually where my off-camera villains and NPCs would come in. I didn't have a lot of NPC PCs for the tot game, which I know is kind of a misnomer. But there were no key NPCs being played by player characters. They were just villains. Because I learned that trick way too late in the game to start doing that organically. Ridgemont was supposed to be a villain, but kind of fell through. And I don't know if anyone other than Joel had a concrete backup character, even as an idea. I know somebody's asking what would have happened if Bang didn't save Bentley from the bridge. I don't know. It was so early on. It changes a lot of stuff. What moments stood out for every character? I will go very quick. I think we only have 3 more. So Milo taking Helios to the moon instead of Wadsworth really showed Joel's ability as a player to be 4 steps ahead of everyone else at the table and just outsmart a threat that he knew he couldn't kill directly. So that was great.
Thank you.
Phoebe and CJ waking up Dane to feed him cakes to put him to sleep to steal a key is the perfect example of hijinks shaping a narrative because those 2 without supervision are completely unhinged. And if they don't do that, the game doesn't have a tombstone and thus doesn't have Lord Ridgemont. It doesn't have ghost ties in any way. We never have Kaya. We never have the doppelgangers. None of that happens. Bentley trying to cheer up Jackson Xantha showcased the inspirational side of Bentley, and I really wish we got more of that. Because I really like those moments where Bentley would push through grief and loss and be that Captain America character where no matter how slim the odds are, he just keeps going. where he was just determined, super dedicated and eager to keep pressing on. So I really liked any moment with that. D trying to execute Ruhan and Halana with Wave was a moment of Devin showing through. I don't think D would have done that, but Devin did. But that led to a phenomenal internal conflict for D. So that was kind of a landmark moment there. Obviously, everyone's actions throughout the game were varied, and they changed a lot as their characters developed. But this game was invaluable learning experience for me as a new DM. I had very little experience before we started this. So running for players who knew a franchise really, really well was super overwhelming. But the players always had a through line in their actions that made it really easy to plan for their encounters and stuff. So that was always very helpful. What are some potential subplots that the players thought of but didn't pursue? There's only a couple that I'll get into because obviously there's a trillion. But the Team Rocket Syndicate in Alluvia, which had ties to the Sweet Up Nose Gang, CJ's family, and general corruption. The Sableye and Xantha, which, to be fair, was on the docket until the Oni exploded. CJ becoming a shapeshifter. He had everything but never pulled the trigger. Bentley becoming Helios' champion. We've talked about ad nauseum. And everything to do with Mox Eterna. Trevor Tube. We know a couple NPCs were controlled by people. Are there any we don't know about? Yes, Samantha, the Mew, and Mox was supposed to be one, but rip. So there's that. We talked a little bit about it earlier. I'm going super rapid fire. We're genuinely on the last three now. I am the 1-2-10 asks, in the nightmare, CJ had everybody fighting him while being dead. What would have happened if he won? He would have reclaimed the tombstone, maintained his humanity, recovered what had been lost, enhanced by absorbing the silver-handed shadow man from the ghost world, a.k.a. the darker shards of his soul. He would have just come back full tilt, full swing. Ren asks, did the Feraligatr in Lake Lahana end up in Ridgemont Manor? A fair question, but no. Ridgemont Manor is a place for wayward souls. The Feraligatr had no doubts or regards to keep him tethered. He had no regrets. He misses Remy, but his death, while untimely, didn't prevent him from accomplishing anything. And tying off from there, Trevor Tube asks, can you explain how the rooms in Ridgemont Manor worked? Could the tots have found any Pokemon that had recently died there? So the Pokemon Desire rooms, I came up with Troy. They were capable of helping trapped souls prepare to move on. They had enchantments to provide for any need that a soul would have. Very simple in concept, but complex in execution. That's all that I have. Okay. Let's jump to here, and then we'll start tackling the Riftkin questions.
Woo! All right.
So Riftkin questions, baby.
Minnie wanted to ask again, because he asked at the meetup, but for everyone else.
Yes.
Did you have an all-time favorite Tater Tot quote?
I mean, We Have Its Feet is really good. I think it's been overtaken in my heart now by We Are Tater Tots, seasoned in the fires of
cooked in the fires of adversity.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah. It's too good. But yeah, We Have Its Feet is incredible. Just in context, it's great. Yeah, I don't know. Any of those Phoebe zingers were perfect.
This one's a little bit of a loaded question. Have you ever retconned anything?
Yeah, we did a bunch of stuff. Most recently was when the three boys went to Lake Lahana and met Undertow again. CJ canonically left his entire team in the cave. And you guys decided to float the Waterstone up the river instead of flying over the mountain, which was going to be a 3-day journey, risking the Polytoads again. And I talked to them about it off camera, and they went, yeah, let's fix it. The biggest one, obviously, is the last session. We talked about it at the live meetup. It's a little bit too long of an explanation to get into here, but we retconned that. Phoebe broke her leg. There was a party split. Every player was really annoyed with me for splitting the party until I explained to them what was happening, and then they really wanted to do it, and then I didn't let them do it because I had to explain to them what was going to happen. So those are the biggest retcons, but yeah, we retcon stuff all the time.
Have any of us ever considered playing competitive Pokemon?
We did, kind of, in college a little bit.
I mean, we dabbled, but we never did any actual events. I was going to pivot. We do like battling, though, and if you haven't watched the direct, you should.
Choo-choo, baby.
The battle train is coming.
Yeah, I haven't done it since Pokemon Y. I would do online battles, not really competitive, but I did do stuff like that.
Demigod Schmurda asked, will Joel's Milo shirt, the one I'm currently wearing, ever be available for purchase? Previously, no, it wasn't, because it was so expensive, because it's an all-over print, and I made one just for me, and at the price it was, I'm like, no one will ever buy this.
Yeah.
However, good news, the awesome people that we work with for our merchandise have recently gotten a sublimation machine, which is how these are made. So,
oh snap, son.
We're having conversations about it. It's on the table, but they've got to figure out how to do it effectively and all that fun stuff before we can do it. So
that's cool. Even I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's
like
neat.
a week ago, the answer would have been no. And
yeah, no, and never, and don't ask. But now
it's like that could happen. It could maybe happen. And then, were there any plans for doing additional fishing trips or developing that?
Yeah, if they didn't blow up the Oni, Bentley and CJ were gonna go their separate ways, and Bentley was just gonna go fishing. He was gonna go look for the relicanth and such. But yeah.
And in your head, what would have happened to Riot throughout his life with his symbiote?
I showed him in the future. The longer he had Riot, the more evil he would have become. And there was never any real training involved with Riot. It was always, hey, go out, eat whatever you want. So the bigger he got, the more he would have started like sizing up the tots. Because there's my favorite fact about snakes is if they think they can eat you, they'll kind of line up and flatten their body if you lay down next to them to see if they could fit you in their mouth. And that's horrifying to me. So it would have probably gone to that. Because the bigger he gets, the hungrier the symbiote gets.
Nice. All right. Well,
that's gross and scary.
That about covers it.
Yeah.
I think we can transition to Riftkin now. And we've got some questions, and I'm going to ask them in a very particular order. But
yes.
First, if you wouldn't mind, it might be easier for me to get up. Hold on one second. I just want to set the mood.
Oh. You know, darken it in here a little bit? He's setting the mood, gang. Oh my. Let me do this too. There we go. Hello. Welcome to actual studio lighting. This is I like it a lot better when it's a little darker in here. It's a lot
it's very cinematic.
Easier on the eyes too.
All right.
Hit him with it, buddy.
I'm going to ask these in a specific order because they kind of make the most sense as we roll into this. So if you have not watched our direct yesterday, again,
you're going to be very confused.
Yes, you're going to be confused. Please check it out after this video, or run over there and come back and check it out.
It's 9 minutes long.
Yes.
The first 6 will cover everything we're about to talk about. Because the last 3 are the
they'll
battle
catch
train.
you up. So game 2 is not Pokemon. It is based on Riftkin, which is Drew and Devin's own game system design. It is very Pokemon-esque in terms of like catching and taming monsters and all that fun stuff. So definitely go check that out. And we'll go over some questions today. Maybe reveal a Riftkin or two.
Oh, snap.
And here we go. So Omega asked, what are our thoughts on Riftkin fan content? And I said it in the chat just to get in there right away, but we're all for it.
Yeah. In the same way of like, if you guys had any like tot fan content, go for it.
Absolutely.
Do your thing. Design your own. Put them in the fake mon thing. Go for it.
Yep.
Like, by all means. That's super cool for us.
And those of you that are part of our Patreon that are taking on the battle train, there's going to be pseudo Riftkin fan content via that avenue as well. So.
Yeah. The only... we'll cover that later. That's boring. Not really. It's exciting, but the thing I was going to say is boring.
Creamy McCreamy wanted to ask if we can know the name of the region for Game 2.
Yeah. It's called Carcasso.
Ooh.
Yes. There is a secondary location there, but I'll leave that until we get started. But yes, Carcasso will be the region name.
And to answer this one real quick, Spoiled Cheese asked, where can we find all the information on the Riftkin system? The direct from yesterday.
The direct from yesterday for now.
Our questions today.
Yes.
And in videos on the channel, which feeds right into Bookworm asking if there's going to be a resurgence of Drew's lab video because of the Riftkin system.
Not because of the Riftkin system. I'm going to do a couple Pearly Gates lab videos, and then we're going to change. We'll probably rebrand the Professor Drew's lab to just the Professor's lab or something similar when we start to talk more about Riftkin, because those will probably feature Devin as well, going through mechanics and stuff like that. We do want to break down how the system is going to actually work. In the direct, we just mention a bunch of features. We want to make bespoke videos to explain to you literally how the system will function, so that when we get into Game 2, you guys know what's going on if you've watched them. Or if you're just there for the story, then the system will be out of the way for you.
Yep.
But for those of you that want to know, that way we'll have that.
Lake Carter asked about one-shots. Not specifically for this, but it does kind of tie into...
Was it in the monthly update or the Q&A?
One of the two.
In one of those, we talked about it already. So to sum up for those, what we'll be doing is, from our perspective, every month we are going to play a canonical Campaign 2 session for 3 out of 4 weeks every month. The 4th week, to give the cast and crew a break, kind of, we're going to have a in-world one-shot that does not necessarily have the player characters in it, but to expand on NPCs as potentially voted on by you folks in the audience.
Patreon.
Yes, for the patrons, voting on NPCs that we want to see more of. Or if there's an element of backstory that we want to explore, we might tackle stuff like that. But yes, there will be some non-canonically canonical one-shots that may or may not take place.
Texas Trent was the example that we used in the Patreon.
Yeah, if let's say we introduce Texas Trent and you guys really like Texas Trent, we'll make a one-shot featuring Texas Trent. But that's where all of our friends that really, really want to be playing D&D but can't commit to 3 weeks a month can pop in, play that character, and then 2-3 months later we might check back in with them. So it's a way for us to keep the same amount of content for you guys, but lighten the load on the lovely folks in our lives that everybody, excluding myself, who will be in Game 2, here's your hint, because everybody wants to know, everyone who will be in Game 2 has a child. So they need help to watch the kid.
Yeah, except for one. There's one that doesn't.
Except for me.
Yeah. Well, but you're the DM.
That's true. Well, yes, except for one. That's a fair point. I didn't know if they
don't.
Okay, then never mind. So forget everything I just said there. Ignore that. But yeah, we'll get into all of that stuff later. Yes, effectively, majority. It's a big thing that we learned is it's very difficult to deal with every single week we meet up at this time, we play for this long. So we shifted our schedule. Your release schedule is not going to change. But we have a bunch of people that want to play but can't commit. So we're going to have that week of releases, the last Saturday, that's the day we play. The last Thursday of every month will just be one of those one-shots. So a way for us to explain more stuff in the world, keep that going.
So in that vein, Jake Lilly asked, who is coming back for Campaign 2? You worded that question very specifically.
Yes, who is coming back for Game 2? Who's coming back? Joel, Devin, and Tia.
And Drew.
And me. I'll be there as well. I keep forgetting myself. So Joel, Devin, and Tia will be coming back for Game 2. Yeah, hopefully that answers that question.
Yes.
I think it does. It does as worded.
As worded.
As worded, we answered your question. Technically.
Evie Key asked, do Riftkin evolve?
Yes. We are currently determining what that looks like and the word that we're going to use. But yes, they will change forms as they grow and develop.
And Sam now asked, you may have missed it in the chat, but Bookworm asked, he said, I'm excited to see all the expanded cats.
Yes.
Cast.
Yes, if you've seen the Cats movie, we will be bringing the full cast and crew of Cats.
Yeah.
No.
So now we need a long cat Riftkin that
Yes.
never ends.
No, because long cat is tall Meowth, and I hate it. Stupid.
So we've got that.
Sorry. Sorry if you liked that thing. But...
Semi-related two-part question from two people. Chance F asked, have we recorded yet?
No.
In Ibograph, I think is how you say that, maybe Ibograph. When will the game start?
We will start recording it very soon. We actually have a start date for the recording. We intend to release in the spring to get it started. We want to build up a backlog and make sure that we know what we're doing and that the quality is good. We don't want another session 1 of tots on our hands where the background audio is too loud and all that stuff. We want to make sure that everything is perfect for that first session. We want to get a lot of art done and all that stuff. So we want to go above and beyond for session 1. So we're going to take as long as it takes for that. And then we want to build up our backlog. But our plan is to start releasing in March, April, somewhere in that zone. And we'll let you know. And we'll premiere the first one probably.
We'll keep you posted. And in that interim time, we're going to have Riftkin reveals. We're going
to do 2 to 3 Riftkin reveals per week. Not lines, but Riftkin reveals.
Yes.
So, yes, they will either be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday in the form of a YouTube short. And as soon as Devin and I get together and start to film those mechanics system videos, we'll let you guys know the release schedule of those to keep them evenly paced. So there will still be content coming out. We're not just going to leave you guys hanging in the dark with nothing to do.
There's going to be a lot of prep for it. And Chris asked, when will player characters be revealed?
When session 1 goes live. If you've seen our new banners, you'll see some outlines of some new player characters. But till then.
Ebigraph also asked, how many Riftkin can a tamer have?
So for our setting, the absolute maximum will be 10. In the system itself, you can have a set amount with you at a time to a maximum of 6 as of now. I don't envision that changing. 6 seems like a nice round number, but that is as you progress through the levels. So at the start, if you start your adventure, you can have 2. But that'll be another thing that we'll cover in a mechanics video.
All right.
But a good question nonetheless.
Ryan asked, are we going to have something akin to a monster manual for these Riftkin?
Can I say it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing that. Yeah, we're making a book.
A book, a physical book, a digital book.
Yes.
There will be a Kickstarter for said book, which was part 2 of your question.
Yes.
We are getting all of that put together. We are aiming for an August-September Kickstarter launch for that of 2024.
Yes.
So look forward to that.
Yes.
There will be a monster manual and a player's handbook, so to speak, on how to play in the system. But if you're 5 years deep in your Pokemon game and you just want a book full of additional monsters...
if you just want monsters and abilities, if you want to do how I made a lot of encounters for the TOTS game and go find a 4th edition or a Pathfinder monster manual and just steal those abilities and graft them onto stuff, feel free to use ours. That's our goal, is that you can... Even if you're running a game in a different system, you can just take those monsters and toss them in.
Real Ice Charizard asked, are we going to have a theme song?
Yeah, probably.
Always.
Yeah, I'd say it's a fair bet.
So Drew and I think more me than Drew, but we've been fans of Mega 64 for a while.
Yeah.
And one of my absolute favorite things on the planet is when they do their podcast and one of them just interrupts and goes, theme song, and then their theme song just starts playing.
Mid-sentence, it just...
and they change it up like every year, and it's super cool. So we've always been into that and having a theme. Tia and I have been cooking what's going to be the intro for the game from a visual standpoint. So we'll have to find or make a song that fits that and figure it out. But yes,
Tia's been doing a lot of the kind of backsplash art and stuff behind the scenes. Joel's been absolutely killing it as Mr. Manager. He is our project manager. He keeps us on task. And he's thrown together everything for that direct. He's been busting his butt. So any of you guys that really like what we've been working on.
Animating them.
Yeah.
They're in the direct.
Everyone that's been, if you've been enjoying the stuff that's been coming out lately, please direct all of your praise to Joel. Devin and I are the idea guys. Joel is the one that puts it into practice. So definitely throw that out there.
It's been a big team effort. We're very proud of it.
Yeah. We're super excited.
Bookworm asked, the focus going forward is going to be primarily the Riftkin system.
Yep.
Yes.
Everything that we feature for Game 2 will use our system.
Yes.
We have no plans to use any other system for Game 2 at all.
And that includes one-shots as well.
Yes, because it would be kind of silly if we made a system and then didn't use it. Not to dismiss the question, but yeah,
no,
that's our mentality that we're at, is if we're not going to use it, why make it? So we're trying to make a system that we want to run and that we want to play.
Sam Cruel asked, what type of setting is this from like fantasy, modern fantasy? Like what are we kind of looking at?
Setting for Game 2, think somewhere between colonial era, like Massachusetts, very American Revolution-esque. So bricks, paneled windows and shutters and such. Very low tech overall. But as always, it's kind of a hodgepodge of weird technologies. I'm going to have the stuff that I want to have and not have the stuff that I don't want to have. The goal, similar to the tots setting, will be technology that can be done by a Riftkin will not have been invented because they wouldn't need it. So using a Voltorb as a power plant is a vague example. You wouldn't need this huge power generator if an Electabuzz walking down the street can put out enough volts to, power New York. So, yeah, but in terms of like a setting, you could ideally fit them in anywhere. That's really the goal of that winding answer. You can put them wherever you want.
An easy one. Are you going to be DMing?
Yes, I will be keeping the Rift. Those of you in the Discord have already seen I am rebranding to Rift Keeper Drew. I am no longer DM Drew. I am a Rift Keeper.
Pretty freaking cool.
So there's that. But yes, I will be running the game.
Then we have Evagraph asking, how many Riftkin are there?
Right now, 106.
106, yep.
We have, I don't know, countless other ideas batting around, and if we can make them cool, we'll make them. We don't really have a cap on it, but it's basically whatever's done by the time we're ready to make the book will be in the book.
Yeah.
And then anything else, we'll just keep working.
So, yeah, 106 as the...
It might be 107. I don't know. We have 106.
As the gatekeeper to all knowledge, it seems. It's 106 Riftkin, but think of that like how there's 150 Pokemon in Gen 1. However, there is a Sandshrew and then a Alolan Sandshrew, and there's different forms, but it's still one Pokemon. There is a little bit of that. So there are 106 Riftkin, but some of them have forms or gender differences and things like that.
I'm trying to do the math because before we added the most recent 4, we were at 104. But 3 of those 4 aren't done yet. So there's technically at least a skeleton for 108. But there are 104 that are done enough that we can be like, yeah, cool.
But we also have a community-run expansion. And I want to be clear from a project pipeline. We are finishing the Riftkin system and fleshing everything out and getting all that ready for launch before we do anything additional. We play video games too, and we don't want to pull an EA and yank stuff out and make an expansion or release something broken.
We don't want to take something integral away from you and then put it out later as anything.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that everything we give you is full and complete and that you can use it.
We do have, that being said, we have an expansion plan, but it's community run.
Yes.
So we have a Pokemon challenge for our Patreon where they are going to be battling each other and making and taking on challenges. And those that win, they will get to create Riftkin and be a part of this, and that will be in a small battle train expansion of community created Riftkin. So with those 20 extra slots, the number gets up pretty quick.
Yes.
Chris asked, so are there 4 playable characters? There's 4 players?
There are 4 that will be at the table week to week to week, not counting the one-shot videos. There are an innumerable number of potential people that may pop in and out on a semi-regular basis. There are some that may come once or twice ever. We have a kind of revolving open door policy for that. Our goal is to shake things up. I want a much more player-focused game. The system is very focused on player interaction. So that's our goal for game 2. Is yes, there will be 4 people seated around the table, not including me, week to week, and then the one shots could feature anybody.
All right. Sam asked, by the time the game starts, will all the Riftkin be revealed, or will some of them be session reveals?
Almost certainly some of them will be session reveals. At the pace that we're releasing Riftkin,
no.
There's no way.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not enough weeks
yeah.
to show you. 2 or 3 a week.
If on average it's 10 to 12 a month and it's only 3 months, we won't even be halfway.
Yeah, you'll see like a third of them before. Obviously, some of the folks at the meetup will have seen, I think about 20. I think was the number.
Something like
maybe
that.
more.
It was more.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
But
20 or so.
To reiterate, some will be session reveals because let's jump back to the direct for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Camouflader exists, right? And
Yeah.
let's pretend you didn't see any of them, but my character has a camouflader that's speedster style. That would still be a reveal, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So there are still innumerous.
Yeah.
Plus, when you factor in like how we played Tots, like Shimmer being deaf and having the hat, it wasn't a typical Fletchinder.
Yeah, those things are still going to happen.
Yes.
That's just the kind of game I run. Even if you see, if one of the players were to start with a Cablast, it would not look like the art you have seen for Cablast, which is our little cabbage friend from the Direct. So there will definitely be player customization on all that stuff. And so far as I am aware, you guys have not seen any of the starters yet for what we're doing in Game 2.
I was going to change that today, but...
Ooh, well... You heard it here first.
Scourge asked 2 questions.
Yes.
One, are there going to be legendary Riftkin?
You've seen one. You've seen the luminous Thundercrest.
Yes.
And yes, our word for them will be myths. They are literally just creatures of myth. But yes, they will be physical things. They will exist in the world. You can interact with them. I'm not doing I can never remember. I'm not doing the Tulpas thing again. You can't actually interact with these legendaries.
And Scourge also asked, how are you going to handle describing them for podcast listeners since they are not established creatures?
That we know what we're doing, my goal is to give an incredibly detailed description of each Riftkin minimally the first time we see each species. Fully describe to you the size, the shape, the general aesthetics of it, how it moves, all of that stuff. My goal for the Riftkin campaign, which is going to be great, I hope for me, is to slow down and put more detail on stuff that matters. I did it a little bit in the TOTS campaign. Sometimes I would sit down and actually write out a 2 or 3 paragraph explanation of an area, and I would be so excited to just let the players run loose in there, I would skip. So my goal is to slow down, rein it in without changing the style too much, but to actually give you guys explanations of what's going on. What do you see? What do you smell? What's around you? What does that look like? So we want a much more ambient game because the focus will be less on an unbalanced combat system where all of my thoughts go into that, and instead we'll do other stuff.
All right. We're getting some really fun questions.
I'm seeing them come in. I'm excited.
Yeah. So
I'm trying to stay focused while I'm answering.
I want to backpedal for a second.
Please do.
Sam Cruel asked earlier, but I was saving this because I know it's a longer answer. But Swirl Cheese also asked in a similar vein, how many classes are there?
Ooh. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
No, was there a second part to it?
I think so, but give me a second. You can answer the first one.
I am also going to pull up our...
I'm just going to tell you the exact answer.
Our master document. So I cannot promise that any of these classes will function exactly as they do right now, because we're still testing. We're still doing a million things. Every couple days, we take an entire system that we've designed, we overhaul it, or we throw it away, or we come up with something better. So 1, 2, 3. You'd think I would just know. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 classes so far. We did scrap 4 of them, but we might see them in the future. But they went down design roads that didn't need to be traveled yet.
Part 2 was, are you willing to share any information about any of them?
Yeah, I can elevator pitch some of these, bearing in mind again, subject to change.
Here, go through and pick 3 that you think would be a fun share that are not the champion.
I will skip
the
champion and the summoner.
And I'm gonna say, pick a door as a poll in the chat, and you guys can pick doors 1, 2, or 3.
Oh, a little Monty Hall, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want me to tell you before or no?
No. So just pick what's door number 1, what's door number 2, and what's door number 3.
Do 4 doors.
Okay. Well, I already did 3. So it's
okay. So never mind. Okay, never mind. We'll do. Okay. I have them.
Okay.
I have you now.
It's bouncing back and forth. If there's a door 3 is taking away.
Door
2
2
and 3 are neck and neck.
This is close to the neck and neck. This is eyelash to eyelash.
Will someone get a Tetris? Oh boy.
Look at that. No one wants door number 1. Door number 1 is the best door. Now I'm going to skew the results.
All right, we're going to go with door number 2.
Door number 2. Interesting, gang. Let's throw a monkey wrench into this already, because we've explained in the direct that we will have elemental affinities. So let's talk a little bit about the one class that doesn't care about those and says, I'll do what I want. It's called the Ritualist. That was door number 2. So the Ritualist is our sort of mad scientist. They are all about taking something that does not have an elemental affinity and grafting one onto it. Most specifically, to give you a little more sauce, because you're here and we appreciate you. You take a basic type Riftkin, a.k.a. something that doesn't have any affinity.
Normal type in Pokemon.
Yes, to put it in those terms. And eventually you'll be doing a ritual to make that basic Riftkin become either fire, water, plant, storm, or earth. Fundamentally altering it at a genetic level and changing its aesthetics and function to match the chosen element. They are all about the mad science. So we're super excited for that one. They can also suppress typings. So if you run up against something that is resistant to the damage that you can deal, perhaps, you make concoctions and splash it on them, and they lose any resistance that they have, but they also lose any weakness that they might have. So there's a little bit of a defensive element to it as well. So they're a very tactical class.
Oh, yeah.
Very mad science-y.
Plus, you have all the specializations to customize them further.
Yes.
And really find your play style that you like. I think that's the part that I'm most excited about.
Yeah.
Because it's not like you know, in D&D, I don't know all the terms, so I'm not going to try
I'll
to
help
name
you.
them, but like if you pick a monk and then there's other things
You
you can
have
pick
your
within the
subclasses of monk, and then you have your background, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, but then now it's like, oh, I can pick monk, but I want to specialize in crossbows or whatever, and then you can bring that kind of element in.
Yeah.
Yeah, so super cool one. I'm really excited. Bookworm asked a great question.
Mm-hmm.
Are there going to be class-locked Riftkin? I.e., hey, this Riftkin, you need to be a summoner in order to be able to control stuff like that.
That's not a road we've gone down. Kind of like that idea, though.
But there are Riftkin that work better.
Yes, there are. So we talk about it in the direct, but there are styles that your Riftkin will have. And each specialization tree synergizes with either or a fighting style or one or more affinities. I'm choosing my words very carefully. For example, our champion will work very well with a brawler style. They will synergize nicely. Their bonuses are very similar, and as such, a champion that has a brawler is way more likely to hit and crit and deal a lot more damage than something else. And having I'll tease another class just by name. Having a medic that has a healer-style Riftkin, those two will synergize very well together. That's not to say that a champion can't have a healer Riftkin on their team. It's probably a good idea. But
the healer will do better with
the healer will do better with the medic will do better with the healer. But so far, nothing is restricted. We want to avoid that lock of, well, I want to play this kind of character, which means I have to play Warlock, or I want to play this kind of character, so I guess I'm playing a Rogue. We want it to be, okay, I'm a Ritualist, so I do that mad science, but my team is really fast, so they're speedsters. So that way you can mix and match and choose the one that you want to do the most, or you can diversify and be pretty good at a couple things. So that's our goal with the specialization trees.
Epigraph asked, do Riftkin live in the world and reproduce, and that's where they come from, or are they from another dimension?
Both. So rifts, for our setting, I'll give you guys a little bit of an insight. For our setting, the world was at one time completely normal. And then these elemental rifts started tearing open, and these creatures started to come through. Now, over time, when they come through, those rifts open and close on their own, even if you don't mess with them. So something might jump through and then get stuck here. Now, if there's more than one of that something, say Cablasts, or better example, because Cablast is a cabbage plant, it can grow more Cablasts. So it will just keep it going. Otherwise, yeah, if two Scorpids come through and they start to populate, then yeah, you'll have a population of Scorpids. But it's also possible that a rift opens up and like 30 Scorpids come through, or like one. So the answer's kind of both. They can come through. Otherwise, they do exist in the world as well. They are creatures that the people in the world will be familiar with, but not so much so that they have studied them head to toe and know everything about them. They just know generally how it works.
We're getting some real good questions.
Yeah.
Some quicker ones.
Sure.
Bookworm and Mogu asking about the general release of this. So being a physical book or a digital release.
Yes.
Our initial plan is physical. We love that stuff. We want to have a tangible book that we can have.
I love having system books. They're great.
However, in creating a book, you always have a digital version or a PDF of it, because that's how you print them. So that is totally an option down the line. We haven't fully figured out if that's going to be more of a Patreon benefit or if that's something we're going to sell separately or whatever. We just haven't made that decision yet. But yes, both will exist to a capacity. And then Mogu asked, in addition to the system and the monster manual, will there be some kind of adventure module for Riftkin?
I like where your head's at. So we right now are very focused on obviously the monster manual and the system. Once we know that those two things work, we have a bunch of ideas that have started to crop up that don't fit with what we're doing yet. So we've got those classes that we've cut and kind of put aside. We've got a couple Riftkin ideas that don't really fit the aesthetic that we're looking for. So potentially down the line, we'd like to look into an adventure module-esque thing where, hey, here's an adventure you can go on. Here's, 5 or 6 new specializations, maybe a new class. Here's 5 or 6 Riftkin or a variant of one that already exists. And here's some stuff you can do with them. Here's a couple NPCs you can throw in. That's all I'll say for now because that stuff is still very fresh. We've only started talking about that this week. But yes, we would like to do that. I can't promise
100%.
that we will,
Yeah,
but we would like to do that.
absolutely on the table.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan asked, will there be systems in place to multi-class, or is that more the specializations?
Both. You will be able to multi-class, at least so far as we've done in the design. But unlike in, say, 5th edition D&D, no 1 to 3 or 4 level dip is a good idea compared to what you would get if you stuck with the class you chose. So I'm sure there are some busted combos that Devin and I can't see because we're too close to the design, but we're leaving that door open for the players that want to have those multiple class ideas. But otherwise, yeah, our intention is kind of the specializations for that customization. But yeah, you definitely can.
I'm going to butcher the name. I'm going to guess it's Rasune. Asked, how does taming Riftkin work? Is there a capture device of some kind or a bonding that they go through?
I'm so glad you asked. So this was in my segment of the Devin and I were working on our systems independently. So I was using the D100 capture system. I'm still a fan of that. We have things called a Rift Focus, where every individual tamer in the world will have their own bespoke Rift Focus. The general example I give is if you're familiar with a star compass or an astrolabe. That's the first one that comes to mind for me, is you would kind of align that astrolabe to a specific sort of star alignment, and that would call forth a little rift, and thus your Riftkin would pop out. I won't spoil the Rift focuses that I know for the player characters, even though that's the prime example I'd love to give you. But the taming mechanics are a little bit too complicated to get into here. We'll probably do a systems breakdown video on them. We do have a chart explaining how it works. But it's very similar to the tots one. There is the will of the creature that you're fighting. How many hit points does it have? Does it like you? Are you fighting? Did you start the fight? Did it start the fight? How does that work? Have you helped it? Have you developed it at all?
It's a D100 roll.
It is a D100 roll at its core.
Yeah, it is simple. It's just the math behind.
Yeah, so we'll cover the specifics later, but yeah, it's just a D100 roll at the end of the day, and you're going to be adding or subtracting a set amount based on circumstance.
Yes.
So there's that.
Sam Cruel asked, is there any sort of gunslinger class or something with firearms?
There's not a specific class. We do have rules for firearms.
Ren asked a question about the battle train in terms of how many keys and energy they would need to win the challenge.
I think we left that intentionally vague.
Yes.
For a time.
Yes. So in my head, I haven't answered that question, but I don't want to give it yet because it depends on how many people partake. For example, let's say that I tell you you need 10, just to make it an easy number. You need 10 keys, but only 9 people end up starting at first.
Yeah.
Then 9 people are stuck
one
waiting,
away.
And then one person joins and they just get absolutely blasted where if everyone trying to get that last one. So it really depends on how many people set up challenges in the beginning before we give you that final number. Because I don't want to make it...
Because we might be way over ambitious and we may grossly undershoot it, and then the whole designer Riftkin thing is done.
Yeah. So it'll depend on how many challenges there are. But once we get to that point, I'll absolutely let you know.
Yes.
Epigraph asked, is there a, as of yet, max level for a tamer? And I'll throw on, how about a Riftkin?
So, for a tamer, there will be a max level. For a Riftkin, there will be a max level. We are still debating on the hows and whys of what that number will be. A lot of that, I think, will come with testing.
Yes.
But yes, there will be a max level.
But for ease of mind for you guys, it's not like a, hey, this isn't done. For my buddy Sam in the Discord, my fellow Google Sheets nerd,
Yeah.
I have built spreadsheets that they've already established what happens at different percentages to max level and what happens at max level.
Yeah.
I've built the equations for them to, hey, if the max level was 5, if it was 20, if it was 100, how does that scale? So the leveling up part is done. It's just how often do you level up and what do you get? So
yeah, that's a much better way to say it. We're looking to avoid I love the Bard, but we're looking to avoid the Bard level up tree. Hey, I leveled up. I got 1 spell. No class feature, no nothing for like 4 levels. You just get spells. And I know spells are cool, but when you're a Bard and you get a spell, you're like, I would kind of like a class feature, please. So our goal is to, if we can make it 100 and every level has something that's worth doing, and it's not super tedious, but it's also not happening constantly, we'll do it. But if we can't, and 20 is a magic number, we can do that. If 50 works out, and such. So right now, exactly right. Everything is done on a percentage base of your percentage to the maximum potential of your class. All of that is mapped out. We just have to figure out the exact numbers.
Yeah. In what increments are you getting it? And that
yes.
Kind of stuff. It's tweaking it.
Yeah.
EV Key asked, will there be status moves or status conditions?
Yes and yes. That'll be a mechanics video on its own as well. Because there's going to be a bunch of terms that you might be familiar with and a bunch of terms that are similar to terms you'll be familiar with that don't work like anything that we've done before. So we want to make sure that those make sense.
Okay. Before we get to the next question, I do want to do some Riftkin reveals for everyone that's stuck around this long.
Oh,
for
yeah.
Sure.
Let's show them up.
I want to show 2 right now.
Okay.
I want to show one that people saw at the meetup, and I want to show a new one for those that did come to the meetup so they can see something new.
Sure.
So I want to get
I'm here for it.
give me some type suggestions in the chat, and we'll do a poll, and you guys can pick which type you want to see.
Oh, snap, gang.
So just start throwing those in there while we wait. Questions about gyms in this setting. Are there gyms, gym leaders, gym challenges?
Not in our setting and not for game 2. If you guys put those in your settings, I fully encourage you to do so. I said my piece on the gyms, I think during the epilogues. I burn out really hard when I have to do the same exact thing 4, 5, 6 times in a row. And it's really hard for me to do the same thing that many times in a row and not change stuff. Because all over the board, I just want to change things. So we're not going to be doing those. I do have ideas for these like big overarching kind of adventure things that the players might go on to get boons. The equivalent of like a gym badge that I would have given for like, hey, take +2 to nature and your wisdom goes up by 1. So those equivalent things that they can undergo, but the goal would be that they would take those challenges on together. So nothing specifically like that, but there will still be tamers out there that may want to scrap with you on the road for money, bragging rights, rations, whatever. So yeah, there'll be stuff like that.
All right, so there's a big push in the beginning for Storm and Radiant.
I saw that. Storm and Radiant,
and then additional Undead. So I'm going to get another poll going.
Storm, Radiant, and Undead, baby.
While we do some of that, Sam asked, on the topic of spreadsheets, will there be a Riftkin-style spreadsheet we share for those running the game in the future?
I'll leave that to Mr. Google Sheets himself.
Yes is the minimum answer.
Okay.
There will be something similar to Patreon where we have systems in place for you to run a game and let your players do that. 100% I will be doing that. I will say cautiously, optimistically, there is a plan in place for Kickstarter as a stretch goal that if this does well enough, we've begun communications to have an official app D&D Beyond type experience so we can get people that maybe aren't even spreadsheet
savants, shall we say.
They can at least have an app and players can track their Riftkin and all that stuff without having to worry about all of that.
A big aspect of whether or not that comes to fruition is while we're playing, figuring out what is important to track, what would be helpful to be, a quick button press, what's helpful to be automatically mathed out. Like the hit points for the tots game was super helpful. Joel built a very simple in concept, but I would never have been able to set it up. Set of calculators that changed health bars from green to yellow to red for me. So just figuring out what needs to be tracked over time will be our first step from there. And then if there's a lot of that, taking that to an app developer and seeing where it goes.
But if we don't reach that point, absolutely we'll be supported with spreadsheets.
Minimally, I think we'll be launching our stuff with a spreadsheet. And at that point, you guys can.
And then Bookworm asked, similar to Omega earlier with community content, licensing community content, once the Rift system is out, 100% you guys are totally welcome to make your own.
Yeah.
Please share with us. We'd love to see it.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Scourge asks, without going into details, are there dinosaur or fossil Riftkin?
Without going into details, yes.
Ooh. I will toss out there, being vague but fun, that there is a specialization that allows you to focus on such a thing.
Yes.
So even if you are a champion, but you want to also focus on fossils, you absolutely can do that. All right, so I'm going to write down some more questions.
Okay.
But in the meantime,
you
the poll has ended. Storm was the winner, followed by Radiant.
Yeah.
So
we want to show off a Storm boy?
Yeah, so I'm going to head over to my computer real quick.
Yes.
And Drew is going to talk about a couple more questions while I get those ready. And we will show off a Storm Riftkin and a Radiant Riftkin.
Oh, snap.
And some questions to think about while I do so. Drew, will you sub out from DM to player from time to time in Riftkin? And Omega asked...
I can see him. Okay,
perfect.
You're on chance?
Yes.
Yeah. Will I sub out from DM to player? Possibly on the one-shot weeks if somebody's really inspired and wants to run something. I would have no issue jumping in as a player, but in the canonical week-to-weeks, it's very unlikely. Omega asked, please tell me there isn't a type or element that's similar to Dragon from Gen 1 where there's only like one line of them. Our goal is to avoid that. We do have a couple design bottlenecks. I'll be as transparent as I can, where we are looking to make sure that there's not one line or two lines of a type, which is why our number keeps growing. At the meetup, there were 104, then there were like 106, and now there might be like 108. So we are still designing the critters. Just because the game starts doesn't mean we're going to stop designing. And that'll be a whole design space that we can kind of mess about with. Is the Radiant type a reference, or did it originate here? No, Radiant type popped in here. We were going to originally have light and dark as two types. We've already got a suggestion from somebody in the YouTube comments on the direct saying if you're looking for a dark type, why don't you do umbral typing? We did. We had Astral and Umbral were two types that was taken from Final Fantasy XIV as a design space. But Astral type went away, became Arcane. And then Umbral was just going to be Lunar again. And then we were going to have Solar and Lunar type. And then the goal was, no, let's leave those behind. Let's not deal with that. So, the Radiant type is just meant to represent light and kind of a more holy, angelic magic kind of stuff. Those of you in the Discord may have seen our tiny friend, a little candle. You know who you are if you've seen him. He is, in fact, headed on a radiant trajectory. So we wanted to leave that door open as a design space for ourselves. So light became radiant and kind of went there. Let's see, what are all the types and elements for the Riftkin? Stride Z, go check out the boarding party Pokemon Direct from yesterday. We have the entire affinities chart locked in for you, so you can see that whole thing. Yeah.
For Storm, we at current juncture
Uh-huh.
2 options.
Yeah.
One is
You can tease the names, I think.
one is Shockwave.
Hmm.
And the only other option would at current juncture,
Uh-huh.
what we can do would be Dynamite.
Ooh, but he's still cooking.
So it's up to you if you want to show the
Ooh.
progress of how Riftkin are developed.
Okay, how did you do the poll? Let's do it.
In the meantime, we'll do a rating.
Okay. All right, gang. In case you can't hear Joel, we have 2 options for you for the Storm type Riftkin. We can either show you a fully done piece of art, or we can show you the concept art for one that we're working on right now. So we'll start a poll between concept art and full design. In the meantime, Joel's going to be putting a Radiant type Riftkin up on the screen so that you guys can see it. There we go. So I'm going to start a poll for you real quick. If you'd rather see for the Storm type Riftkin either the concept art or the full design. I'm the 210. Man, I missed most of this. Don't worry. The VOD of this will be up on the channel as soon as we're done. So rest assured. It's not going anywhere. Cricket Man's indeed. Yeah. So this is Brasshopper. Check him out. He's Radiant type. He's also Insect type. And I love him. I love him so much. They are so named because they love to eat the pipes in farmhouses. And that's what gives them their kind of brass and copper exterior. So rather than eating your crops, they eat metal. So big fan of these guys. I love them. I love them a lot. It looks like concept art is edging ahead. Full design was winning, but now concept art has dived ahead into the lead. Da, 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 da. Will there be evolutions that are bond-oriented and say a day-night cycle as with Umbreon, Espeon, and Sylveon? I don't know how much I could say because it might sway your choice on this reveal. But yeah, I'll just say yes. We have at least one of those. Concept art is winning. I'm calling it. It's 60-40. It's pulled way too far ahead. All right. So Joel's going to pull up concept art that we literally got, I think, yesterday, maybe 2 nights ago. So you're going to see some line art for a Riftkin. He's snagging a picture of him right now. You grabbing phase 1? No, you know what? Do phase 2. Phase 2's delightful. Because phase 1's a little basic, I'll be honest. So why insect type instead of bug? What? I know, I love him, but they're not ready to see him yet. Why insect type instead of bug? Insect is more specific, while bug is more general. I don't know. I feel like a lot of the designs that we had, I wanted to open up to just having different types. We changed the names of a couple things. Like grass is now plant type for us. Because I don't like the idea that everything is just grass when it's clearly a plant. But here he comes. Here he is. All right, so this is unfiltered, baby. We haven't even seen the final art of this guy, but this is going to be Athlite, a middle stage of a storm type Riftkin. This dude, big fan of the aesthetic that our artist landed on for this. We knew we wanted some degree of tiny electrical fella that can do things. And we couldn't move away from hockey puns while we were trying to come up with this. So his name is Athlite, because he's an athlete made purely of light. But big fan of this guy. I think his signature move right now is called Slapshock. That might change. But yeah, he is pure storm as of now. I think he may be going storm metal. We're in the design space of that. So there we are. But yeah, he's just a little guy. But they use their kind of magnetic lightning powers to lift and throw conductive metals around. So it makes them really good at hockey. Joel's going to do one more. He's going off the books.
Because I want to see if we can do the animated ones.
Oh, okay. He's going to try to put an animated Riftkin on the screen for you guys to see. So let's see. Are there secondary types? Yes. Every Riftkin will have at least one affinity, if not two. It works. All right, gang, you're about to get another teaser. This guy, I know people ask all the time, which one's my favorite? I've never said him, but I do genuinely think this line is my favorite. I've just been kind of sitting on them, but I love them so much. So upcoming is, yeah, I think he's my favorite. This guy's name is Squires, and I'm a huge fan. He's a little marionette puppet, not puppy, little marionette puppet. He stops when it runs. Okay, so he's gonna be animated for a little bit, and then he's gonna stop. But he's basic type. These guys are my favorite because, as a theater kid, huge fan. When they play pretend, it's real. So if they whip up a cardboard sword to use as part of their act, it can cut like any sword could. So I'm a huge fan of Squires. I also love what he will transform into when he gets a little bit tougher.
True.
He's a basic type, and I'm a huge fan of it. I think it's great. Joel did a phenomenal job animating him, moving him up and down. They've got a signature move where they make you the puppet, and they try to kind of move you around a little bit. So they've got a little bit of an ominous feel to it. I promise it's not Arlecchino. It's just a puppet, and I love it.
So yeah, that's a handful of Riftkin for you guys. We have had a great time putting them together. They're super awesome. Someone asked, Jerry, is there any plans for merch on Riftkin? So we will obviously have the books next year. Will we have merch beyond that? Yes. So as someone who likes a lot of I love the sitting cuties with Pokemon. I love a lot of other things that other people do, and like cards. I have tried to do these things with the top game, and people,
as soon as they figure out it's Pokemon, they get a whiff of it, and then they shut the whole thing down.
I made an entire set of Tater Tot cards, and the intention behind it was to tie them with merch. So you could get a pack of like CJ's team, and it would have his whole team. But if you bought the CJ shirt, you'd get a Crash variant card. It was this whole thing.
It was a really cool idea.
Right up my alley. And the designs were done, and the printer was like showing us stuff, and they were about to do their run, and they were like, hey, Wyatt in our print shop said these are Pokemon and you can't make these anymore. And we're like, what the heck? Wyatt,
yeah, they'll get you all the way to the end, and then they go, no.
So being sick of all that happening, now that we have Riftkin and it's our own thing and we can do whatever we want, 100% there will be merch.
Yeah.
Those that went to the meetup got some minis. They're little acrylic standees. I have one right here. I've got two right here that are to scale, like from a dex perspective, to go with standard character minis if you're playing on a map, or they're just really awesome display pieces. They can be bottom lit and they look super cool.
They really do.
Those are on the table. I was gonna show this one, but I don't know if I should.
Not yet.
No?
Not yet.
Drew decreed.
Yeah, not yet. We can't. I don't want to show any of the starters yet.
Okay.
The starters must remain secret.
So Absolutely be on the lookout for more stuff. We will be developing things 100%.
Yeah, there are many, many, many reasons why we wanted to move on from Pokemon. Being able to have a lot of the cool art more easily showcased and available for you guys is one of them.
Yeah. So for the cards, for example, the intention of them is to have them look super cool. So you could have them, but also if you're a DM, you can clip them to your DM screen to show initiative or like, hey, this is what you're fighting. And then on the back side of the card, it has everything for that DM to run that monster, like their stats, their basic attacks, all that stuff. So 100% looking into things, and I am gonna test the waters with plush 1,000,000%. I'm so excited to finally be able to do that.
Yeah. We'll have to put a shelf over my head of just all of the sitting cuties that we end up making. Be great.
Scourge asked Drew in all caps, give us the starters.
That's not a question. But no, more accurately, we're still working on the art for 2 of them. A third one is, as of yet, undecided. And one of them we love so much, but it would be wrong to reveal when Devin is not here.
I have it. But I want to clarify. Drew is referring
I'm referring to the starters for Campaign 2.
For the characters.
Yes,
so
for the characters.
To how Milo's starter was a Murkrow, that's not like a starter for the system.
Yes.
So the water, fire, plant starters were revealed yesterday in the direct. So if you are referring to those, check them out. You can see the basic stage. The plant type starter, Cablast, will have a full-on reveal on Monday via YouTube Shorts.
That one's coming first, huh?
That one's coming first.
All right, you'll get to see all of the
So Cablast will be revealed on Monday. You'll get to see some Dex flavor, his animation, the names of his attacks and his abilities. And then Wednesday, you will see the middle form. And on Friday, you will see the final form. And we're going to do it like that until all of them are revealed, even after Game 2 starts. So keep an eye out for those. It's going to be super awesome. But Drew is referring to...
I'm referring to literally the ones that they will be starting with. Like, Devin's character will have a starting Riftkin that is not one of those 3.
Yes.
Joel's character will have a starting Riftkin that's not one of those 3. So those are the things that I don't intend to reveal to you guys until we start. Those will be on-camera reveals because that's way more fun.
Austin asked, does Riftkin have a mascot?
Yes. In-house, yes, but it's one of the ones I can't show you.
It's now my favorite thing, and I know this is something that Austin likes too, right?
Yeah.
So a question that you could have any correct answer to is, what was the first Pokemon? Is it Bulbasaur because he's number 1?
Is it Rhyhorn?
Is it Rhyhorn because he's Rhydon?
Rhydon because it's the first one designed. Or is it Mew?
Because it's the first one ever, kind of thing. So I unintentionally did that to ourselves. So there's like, hey, it's no secret. The Mantis was the first one ever designed.
Yes,
right?
The Mantis was originally going to show up in an encounter in the Tots game.
Yeah.
Then we were like, wait a minute. What if we just did a bunch of these because the art came out super amazing and it was really fun to design. And then we made another one and we go, oh, this one's sick. And every time we show it to someone, they go, that's the coolest one. And we're like, that's the mascot.
So we have the first one ever made. We have the first one in the decks. We have... anyway, that is all referenced on, I can't show it to you yet, but the cover of the book.
Yep. All of those are featured on the initial cover art of the book.
A meme to us.
Yes.
So,
and it's, God, that art's really cool too. Man, no, I just want to. Anyways, for Jerry, we covered it a little bit earlier, but just to help you out, Game 2 is starting for us in the next month or so. For you guys, it'll be live in March, April, sometime in the spring. There's a lot of plates spinning right now, but once those plates kind of balance out, and spoiled cheese, you've asked a whole bunch, but I can't get into it now because it would just take forever. What are the type matchups? Rest assured, we'll do a mechanics video explaining how that's going to work because we're not doing
type chart.
We're not doing 5th edition D&D vulnerability. I'm moving away from that. We're not handling critical hits the same way, all that stuff. So The goal is for combat to feel more balanced, not to just do Pokemon again. So a lot of the types have had a bit of a shakeup to them, so things might not work exactly the same. But we'll do a video kind of breaking those down and talking about them.
Yep. Bookworm asked if we considered getting in contact with other channels, creators, small companies to spread the word about Riftkin. Right now,
I think we're the small channel.
Right now, not necessarily, because we're in such early days. We want to kind of build it up.
I think when we get to a point where we're getting ready to launch the Kickstarters, we'll probably ask around, see how that'll go.
There's not enough information out publicly for someone to like pitch it.
Yeah, we've shown like a vague outline of 2 classes and like 5 Riftkin publicly. So until we have more concrete stuff to show you.
Yeah. And Bookworm also asked, will alternate starters become a variant rule in the Riftkin system?
The intention for this is you can start with any Riftkin you want to start with. However you run that game, you can do whatever you want. The idea of having the 3 starter lines of Riftkin was it would be familiar for folks that are porting in from Pokemon. Hey, here's something familiar and comfortable. Here's a plant type, a fire type, and a water type starter. They all interact roughly how you'd expect. And here they are. They're also very easy to learn. And they have a very clear progression as they level up. This Cablast has a ranged attack and a melee attack. Scorpit has a melee attack and a status move. And Scallyplat has a defensive buff and a melee attack. All of those are very simple. They show you the different styles that a Riftkin can have without even having a fighting style. They show you the various ways that moves can interact with one another, and they teach you the type variables. So it's just an easy way to introduce the system, and it's very familiar. But the idea is that you could start with any Riftkin. So I guess it's technically a variant rule to start with those 3. But if you wanted a more traditional Pokemon-esque adventure, hey, pick from one of these 3. You could totally do that. The option's there for you.
Okay. Omega is asking if Ice type is buffed compared to Pokemon.
Yes, but I refuse to elaborate at this time.
Okay.
It's buffed in that it's balanced.
I think that about does it for today.
I think so.
Before we leave, though, I want to show off one of the minis. I'm going to grab another one.
Yeah.
This is one that people saw at the meetup, but I will show it on camera so you guys can see A, a new one, and B, what we're talking about with these minis.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for anyone that's not in the Discord, we have been letting folks posting the Riftkin that they got at the meetup in there. So if you want to see a couple extra ones, you'll see it. Let's see here. Oh, I'm getting a bunch of Discord notifications. I apologize. I'm being rude and checking my phone. Oh, okay. While you do that, Spoiled Cheese asks, will each Riftkin have a unique moveset? Yes and no. They will have a specific unique moveset, and they will have access to a wider pool of moves in general as well. He's getting the mini prepared. I'm very curious which one you're going to have picked. All right, gang. So the third thing to be shown will be an undead type Riftkin. Check him out. Meet Tattle Rattle, gang. For those of you that have stuck around so long, I know a few of you at the meetup were given these, but didn't get to know what they were. So here's Tattle Rattle. Please enjoy. The undead blind snake. The only creature currently capable of envenoming the undead. But all right, gang. I think that about does it for now. Stay tuned for more Riftkin reveals, system explanations, all of that normal stuff. Be on the lookout for the lab-style videos where I'll break down a lot of the questions that we couldn't get to today. Tell me everything about Monocos was a big one that a lot of you wanted to know about, and what were X stat blocks going to look like. So be on the lookout for those. I'll start scripting those out and throwing them together. Be on the lookout for those. But until then, gang, Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for coming. It was a lot of fun.
Yes. Thank you for all of your questions. They were great. And I had a great time running through them with all of you. But with that, it's time to close the pearly gates. And it's time to open a rift. Because we're moving into a different world. That was good interpretive dance. All right, gang. I'm rambling enough in the outro. Thank you. And farewell.
Take care, everyone.
Let's get it all powered down. And now it's time to simply ramble until the stream is turned off officially. Goodbye. Goodbye.